Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome to the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners Workshop for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Again, and welcome everybody here this afternoon. We'll begin meeting with the invocation by Commissioner Adamczak and the pledge by Commissioner Turner. Please stand if you're able.
Please bow. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all here today. Please be a guide to us as we make our deliberations and our decisions here on behalf of the county and its citizens. Please allow us to make the right decisions that would be right in your eye. Please, as we leave here, allow us to go out in our community and spread the good word about you and about your Son who died on the cross for our sins. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Adamczak, and thank you, Commissioner Turner. Commissioners, move down to the, we'll move down to item 2, which is public comment on agenda items. Any individual wishing to make public comment, I would prefer with this meeting, with the amount of agenda items that we have, that you hold your public comment until we get to that particular agenda item. If that's okay with everybody. If somebody needs to make comment and then leave, we'll take that at this time. We'd like for you to fill out a blue card, which are at the entrance and the exit of the room, and give them to Ashley Beard, our clerk to board, over here to the left of me. Okay, we'll move down to Port Authority. So I'll recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting and adjourn the Port Authority workshop. Public comment on Port Authority items. Any public comment on Port Authority items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to general discussion on Port Authority items. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, any comments? Okay, I'll adjourn the Port Authority and reconvene the Board of County Commissioners workshop. And I've already talked to Clerk of Court Matt Reynolds, and we're going to move around the schedule just a little bit, the agenda. So we're going to move down to item B, Administration Courthouse Camera System. And at this time, I'd like to welcome some of the individuals that are here this morning or this afternoon. Clerk of Court Matt Reynolds, Mark Weinberg, Court Administrator, our Chief Justice for the 7th Judicial Circuit, Judge Clayton, to his left, Judge Libby Morris, or Elizabeth Morris, Judge Boatwright, and Major Greenwood with the Putnam County Sheriff's Department. And is Colonel Joe Wells here also? Okay, Joe's in the back. Okay, thank you for being here. All right, we'll move down to that particular item. Matt, do you want to start or with Major Greenwood? There's been a request for security and camera systems for the courthouse. And Commissioners, if you saw the breakdown, that it looked like there'd be contributions from the Sheriff's Department and from the Clerk of Court, and also the Chief Judge has given his blessings to use court funds. So Matt?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start it off, and I'll just start off by saying the clerk's, we good?
Okay,
the
go
clerk's
ahead.
office originally was approached by the sheriff's office about starting this project and asked if we had any funding to be able to contribute toward it. And of course, like I mentioned in my budget appropriation request, gosh, was that last week? Feels like it was longer than that. That security improvements are one of my top priorities. So of course I jumped at the opportunity to partner with the other entities that are located down there with us. So I'll let Major Greenwood explain more of the details about how the system itself will work and whatnot.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Major Greenwood, before you go further, Commissioner Turner wants to make a comment.
You know, I appreciate the presentation, I really do, but I know that it's very much needed, and I'm prepared just to make a motion to move forward. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we move this item forward.
Second.
We've got a proper motion by Commissioner Turner and a proper second by Commissioner Harvey. And we'll open it up for discussion. Commissioner Harvey?
That's all I wanted.
Okay. Commissioner Adamczak?
I guess for this type item, the process is just comes down to a consent agenda. And So basically, is the county looking to cover any of these costs? Is the break,
About 60,000. If you look right in there, it tells you what the breakdown is.
yeah, I just wasn't sure if the approval to use court improvement funds was
Yeah,
gonna
that's-
subtract from that as well.
No, the county, if my understanding, the county's gonna pay zero of this. The court improvement fund's gonna pay for the monies other than the sheriff and the clerk on this particular item.
So the item will be processed through the consent agenda with two components. The clerk has funds in the county general fund that is set aside for the clerk, and then the court improvement funds, which are in the board's budget, will be used for those two components. And the sheriff's office will cut a check independent of our items for their portion. So two portions will come from county checks, but not from county operating dollars. One will be the general fund dollars that the clerk has set aside, and one will be court improvement funds, which are not general fund dollars.
I have a quick question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Does the motion for both of the items recommended can it be the same motion to waive procurement along with the motion I just made?
Sure, as long as you don't,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to add that to my motion, that we also take the second recommended action, which would be to waive procurement code for the utilized preferred vendor along with it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll amend my second.
Okay, we've got a proper amended motion to include the waiver of the procurement code process to go to that particular vendor, and a second amended by Commissioner Harvey.
So
Okay.
that adds new questions. So basically, is that vendor, is that a state vendor like we see for fire trucks and things like that, or is that our local vendor?
that's a vendor identified by the sheriff's office as their preferred vendor.
So we didn't put this out for multiple prices from others?
No, we did not.
No, just like anything, I can't get on board with that part of it. The first part I was fine with, but thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
So I kind of followed the same question. We're looking at one vendor, and you're looking at 2 megapixel cameras. Work I'm currently doing, we're not doing anything under 4 megapixel, and we're doing as much as 10. I'm just wondering if we wouldn't be better to slow down long enough to take a look at other vendors and see who might be able to come in with, I mean, looking at the equipment that you have here, some of it looks like it's going to be slightly antiquated compared to what's available now. I don't know that this is the best value, dollar for dollar, versus what's available in the market right now. You got one 90 terabyte server. If that server goes down, you have zero ability to be able to see cameras or record at that point, correct?
I believe there was 2 servers. I'm not sure under that, which quote we've got.
You got, it says one American Dynamics 90 terabyte RAID 5 server.
Well, I think what it's going to go back to is we've selected this vendor also for our jail and sheriff's office improvements. So there's going to be 2 of these same servers at the sheriff's office for our jail project. This is the vendor we're using, and that's one reason why we selected for this project, because we will be in charge of public records, and we're going to use this vendor in the jail and at the sheriff's office, and they'll be working together, both of these.
So are you going to house the equipment at the courthouse or at the jail?
But this one server is going to be at the courthouse, and we're going to have 2 more at the sheriff's office.
So you'll have redundancy that'll, you'll be able to record at the jail, and you're simultaneously recording off-site at the jail itself.
Correct. And we'll be able to review all of it from both places. So we'll be able to monitor.
So you can log in and review it, I understand that, but I guess my concern is, you've got one piece of equipment at the courthouse. I would really have to see how they're structuring this and wiring it to really wrap my head around what you're saying. But normally what I would think we would have is multiple, like NVRs with multiple drives with a lot of redundancy.
Well, the current problem we're having at the courthouse now is there's multiple little hard drives in different places in the courthouse that are so outdated that
Right.
half
I'm
of them
I'm
aren't
talking
working.
about network. NVRs are network video recorders. So, Matt, you're a network guy, I'll ask you. Have you looked at this in any way, shape, fashion, or form to see how this coincides with a network and how we're going to be able to access it in and out?
Not in depth, but I've had my chief information officer, he's been involved with the vendor and has been talking with them, and I know that county IT has also been involved because they had to assess whether there was ample bandwidth through open fiber channels between the buildings that we have down there, and county IT had to verify that just a couple weeks ago. So I know that they have been in discussions with that. I haven't been down that far in the weeds in it, no, sir.
I guess I just want to make sure you guys address my concern, which is if you lose data in the courthouse and that one server goes down, what is our backup plan?
So it's, again, our understanding from our IT company, this is the vendor we have chosen with advice from our IT company and speaking with other people that used it to do some futuristic upgrades at the sheriff's office. There's none of that coming this year. But it would work like any other system where you had two servers at two different locations. Like, for example, we have a server that manages our communications center at the communications center and a backup server for that at the EOC in case we have catastrophic fire or damage at the sheriff's office. So it would work the same. Those two servers would both function as backups to each other at any time we had suffered catastrophic loss at either location.
But these are different kind of server. These are video servers.
Right? Okay.
That's my concern is, without looking at any kind of wiring diagram or the structured layout that whoever the structure, is there going to be a network engineer involved in this at some point?
So through the installation, I mean, yes, there's the network engineers that have worked with our IT sections that have designed this project. Again, I won't be prepared to answer any of those questions. I'm an educated law enforcement officer with 25 years experience there and zero in IT. But we do rely heavily on our IT company, our IT vendor. They've always steered us right, and this has been by far their highest recommendation. They have used this vendor in other locations and have vetted a couple on our jail project, and this is the route we're going to go there. So other than leaning on their advice, I can't speak IT with you, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm looking at their equipment right now online. So again, I would question why we get such a low resolution camera for the money. 2 megapixels, that goes back a long time ago. And the highest ones that we have on here are 8 megapixels. You got 19 8 megapixels. Are those, I'm assuming, going to be for outdoor?
There's going to be 4 outdoor in the parking lot that will cover 360 degrees off of the main light pole in the middle of the parking
4?
lot. There's actually some that are going to be mounted on the outside of the building also.
Okay.
But there's going to be one set up that are in a pod in the middle of the courthouse parking lot that will cover the entire parking lot.
Johnny, come on to the microphone. It's being recorded, but your voice is pretty loud. I just want to make sure everybody can hear you. Okay.
You got four 24-port switches and one 48-port switch. Are these dedicated only for the camera system, or will they be used?
But they do have the ability for future growth because
Right.
this software can also go into our key access system, our card swipe system, and the duress alarms that are in the courtrooms and in the judges' chambers can be integrated into these switches to use that because it's set up to where once we get the money eventually to upgrade to that, if a judge hits a duress alarm at his bench, the recordings will automatically go to the people in that courtroom and you can actually identify individuals and it will track them through the courthouse if need be.
So one concern that's going through my mind is that you're intermingling. You said your secure access, your access controls, and then your cameras. And in my world, it seems to make better sense to have a server that deals with your access control separate. So if one goes down, the other doesn't. And also, if you have a person logging in to work on the access controls, you don't have the same person that may have access to the cameras. You may want to consider separating that, but that's your business, not mine. My biggest concern is that we're going with a single source, and you're saying it's because you guys are using them at the jail. Is this design build? This is their design, or have we retained a network engineer to actually look at the functionality?
They have, it's my understanding that there's a network engineer with this company that designs their plans.
Because it's not in their proposal. I don't, it's, I think there could be a little more meat on this bone, since they're sole sourcing. We could get things called out for, exactly what we're gonna get and what's gonna be involved. Who's responsible if this system does not work day one or we have blind spots?
Well, I'm sure, well, that was when we did a big walkthrough. We're more than doubling the cameras that are in the courthouse now with this plan that's in there now. So we did a full walkthrough for that reason, hallways, entryways. We went through in every place that we saw that we needed coverage. That was part of this at the very beginning. But I guess ultimately it's going to be us, that the bailiffs are in charge of court security. I mean, ultimately, it's
So
not our building.
Are we responsible for this design then at that point? Do they come back, we have 3 or 4 blind spots, they have to pull more wire, add more cameras, and they come back for more money? My understanding is it's now our responsibility because this is what we're asking for, is what you're saying. They didn't bring this to us, we brought this to them and said, this is what our needs are.
We went to them, said we needed coverage, and we did a walkthrough with our IT and with the company and located all the places that needed the coverage.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the courthouse staff, I guess, and, I'll express my concerns, I'll vote for this, but my concerns is we're designing this, we're telling them what we need, and then we're responsible for the outcome. It just seems to me like if we would slow down long enough, bring a network engineer, let them come in and tell us what we really truly need, and then not just get us through the 2022, 2023 years, but actually push us out 6 or 10 years, so we're not buying old antiquated. Maybe we take a look at buying
I truly think this is
something.
going to get us a lot farther than where we are. I mean, we're operating now on 20-year-old cameras.
It gives me
now.
no comfort to hear
I
that.
get it, but this is a gigantic step forward.
$180, almost $200,000. What's the difference between 200 and 250 if we were to get something that's going to last us twice as long or give us more security? That's my question. This is a lot of money.
I understand.
This is not a little bit of money. So it doesn't do me any good to hear, well, this is better than we have.
No, I understand.
And Matt, you're saying you really don't have anything to do with this itself?
Again, like Major Greenwood said, it's not our building. When I was approached by the sheriff's office, of course, security being one of my top priorities, I said if the project is going to happen with security cameras, I would like to be able to add some to it for the other areas that the bailiffs and the sheriff are not responsible for security for, like the customer service building, like I alluded to in my budget letter last week. So I didn't pick the vendor. I have no issue with that, but it's the board's building. It's really whatever you guys want to do. I just know that the sheriff is responsible for security, and that they came down and said, there's major problems with security cameras. So I said, yep, I know. Can I join in? So.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls, I move to
I'm good for now.
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Greenwood, I appreciate the hard work on this. I'm sure that security is of the utmost importance. I support this wholeheartedly, decisions you made. And I used to have a problem with single source things, but anymore, we got to do business with those that we feel comfortable doing business with. And security at the courthouse is of utmost importance. So you got me on board. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Adamsack.
No different than buying a tractor or anything else. I can't get behind single source even when it's under state contract. And a lot of times what they do is they just share what the price is on state contract to the other vendor and explain why they prefer that one. I need to at least see the other vendor, or at least one other vendor. I would prefer 2 others, and some sort of breakdown of how much each camera is, something like that, because it just says what the items are with no cost per item. And a 2-megapixel camera shouldn't be very expensive. I'd like to see how the numbers add up. So I can't get there get into the consent agenda where we could have this discussion, but when he added to waive procurement, I can't get there with the waive procurement at this time without some more information. Thank you.
Okay. Major Greenwood, you have put this together. Do you feel comfortable with this system that'll take care of the court's needs and the security that sheriff's office has to provide for the next, how many years?
I do.
How many years, you think?
I'm not an IT guy. Technology advances a lot, but I would say for at least the next 10 to 20 years, I mean, we should be good to go.
Okay. All right, we got a proper motion and a proper second. Any individuals make any public comment on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign.
Aye.
Okay, all right, 3-2 with Commissioner Adamsack and Rawls dissenting. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move down to item C, which will be our second item, and it's administration, courthouse HVAC system replacement. I believe it's the chiller units. Julianne, you want to make some comments?
Yes, sir, I will. The agenda item before you is for the main chiller system, HVAC system. The chiller in the main courthouse is failing, and it is no longer financially prudent to continue to repair it. And we are at a point where we have reached out to get a budgetary estimate. The estimate came back at roughly 116, so we're asking for a max not to exceed allowance of 120,000. This would go through a normal procurement process. The chillers do have a 35-week lead time, so in the interim, we will continue to make emergency repairs to keep the courthouse air up and running, but we do want to go ahead and act on this, given the lead time in the industry.
Okay, all right, thank you, Julianne. Commissioner Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that usually in our workshops, we don't really take action, we discuss, and then we take it to the next meeting as a consent agenda, but in a lot of instances where we felt like time was a real factor, that we've waived that basically policy that the board has, and I think this is one of those instances because of the lead time on this, that we need to go ahead and waive it going to the next meeting and just and vote on it today to let them go ahead and start the procurement process, because that is going to take some time to go through the process. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me at this point, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, and we approve it to move forward today and not just go to the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we've got a proper motion by Commissioner Turner and a proper second by Commissioner Adamsack. Okay, any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, and we got a proper motion, proper second. Any individuals making public comment on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, go saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Aye.
Okay, all right, 4-1 with Commissioner Rawls dissenting. Okay, okay, thank you very much. We got those two items taken care of, and
Do we need to rise when they leave?
I don't know if they're going to leave. So I do want to thank Chief Judge Clayton for being here and authorizing the funds through the court system. And, sir?
I have my light on when you call for the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can we discuss the chiller, or is it put to bed now since it's been voted on?
We have voted on it, but I would like to hear your opinion.
All right. So this problem has been around for a very long time. I think we need to come up with a solution, but I think it needs to be a permanent solution. I'm not sure, based on what I do for a living, that replacing the chiller system with a new chiller system is a correct action. I really think that what we should be looking at is what it would take to potentially install or look at the cost difference between replacing, because what you're putting in one part of a complete system. Each courtroom, each area has to have a fan coil unit. So you pump in the chilled fluid. The fan coil unit has a coil. It gets cold. It blows air across it. It looks to me like we're not replacing the fan coil units. We're only replacing the chiller head. If when the chiller worked before, it wasn't working adequately, and it sounds like it wasn't, we may be better off looking at using a variable refrigerant flow system where you could have multiple cassettes like you would have in a large facility like a hotel, where you can have different rooms being run at different temperatures at the same time. It would be cost efficient, it would save a lot of money in operations, and it might be a more permanent repair, because the courthouse was not built, when it was originally designed and built, for air conditioning. It was an old building. Back then they didn't have it. But I think, again, we're throwing $116,000 at a problem that we know we've had for a very long time, instead of, coming in 6 months ago and saying, hey, we need to start strategizing and come up with a solution for the courthouse to be a long-term solution. we're going to throw a chiller in there. And then what kind of condition is the hydronic piping in? What kind of condition are the fan coil units in? What if our fan coil units start to fail? You know, when chilled water systems leak, they leak. And when you have leaking in an old building, you have moisture problems. So I understand the vote's taking place, but that's what I would have said in my commentary. So that's why I voted against it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand that we could probably come up with a better system for $900,000 instead of $116,000, but this should get us back on track with a usable system. And I don't disagree that it may not be the best one in the world, but at 116, you can't tell me or make me believe that we can do it cheaper and change all the systems out. I don't believe that to be the case. So this is going to give us an adequate, usable system. The one we've had now has worked for many years, and that's the reason why I voted to move this forward, because this will get us back on track with new equipment. Will it create a situation where there'll never be any maintenance again? No, but neither would another system that cost hundreds of thousands more. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we move on, I would like to thank Chief Judge Clayton for being here, and Mark Weinberg with Court Administration, Judge Bodride, Judge Morris, Major Greenwood, Colonel Wells, and then also Matt. So we're going to take a 3-minute recess. Okay, I'd like to reconvene the Board of County Commissioners workshop, and we'll move up to item A, administration biweekly payroll discussion. Honorable Matt Reynolds.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Just wanted to come and give you guys an update and give maybe an opportunity to give you ample notice in advance of this. I had originally sent the Board and County Administration a letter set multiple months ago now, and we were originally going to swap to biweekly in this month of June. However, after talking with our software vendor, they suggested that we push that back to the end of the fiscal year in order to not have to basically close out the complete year in the middle of a fiscal year and then have to do it again just several months later at the end of the fiscal year. And there's also some nuances with some of the deductions, and that's what I was going to bring up after further research. What county employees will need to do before the transition is complete updated deduction forms if they have weekly deductions, because right now all of our forms are based on a weekly amount. We'll have to swap that to a biweekly amount, and they'll have to complete new W-4 forms. But the new plan for transitioning to biweekly will be the final paycheck of this fiscal year that we're in right now will be Friday, September 30th. And please correct me if I say anything incorrect. I have multiple staff from finance and payroll here.
Brought supervision with you, huh?
What's that, sir?
Brought supervision with
I did. They keep me in line when I say something I shouldn't. So, so the last paycheck will be, weekly paycheck would be September 30th. The next Friday would be October 7th. That would be the Friday that paychecks would not go out on. And then the first biweekly paycheck would be October 14th. So that gap between September 30th and October 14th will be the time frame that we're looking at for the transition. The good thing about September is it is a 5-week, gotcha. It is September is a 5-week pay month, so that September 30th is the 5th paycheck of September, so that should help with that transition. Also, what should help with the transition is I know that the board has previously discussed going to a minimum rate of 13 an hour as well as a 5.38% increase, and obviously that would apply on that first biweekly paycheck on October 14th. Obviously, I don't have the authority on my own to do anything to assist employees through the transition. So that's why I'm here today, is to bring that to the board's attention and potentially have a discussion for it if the board would like to do something like that, or to just put it in all of your minds so that as you work through the budget process, that's something that county administration as well as you guys could consider going into the new fiscal year. But obviously our staff is open to helping in any way that we can with the transition. So that's kind of a summary of what I'm able to update you guys on biweekly pay right now. Happy to answer any questions or discuss any possibilities of how to assist with the transition now, or we can think about it and talk about it at the next one, or at budget workshops as you guys are looking at how you're going to give raises to staff. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Start Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reynolds, how do we notify our employees? What do you think the best way to do that is?
That'll be something that I think from both ends of the table, we can obviously try to help notify county employees. I know that county HR, that's something I failed to mention. We did have an internal meeting with county HR staff, other county staff, my staff, IT staff involved in that several weeks ago, and kind of discussed all of the different little nuances on how to do that. But I think that it should be a combined approach between both our offices to at least let all of the county employees know that, this is coming at the beginning of October. The sooner we can let them know, the better, because July is a 5-week pay month and September is a 5-week pay month. So they'll have 2 months with an extra paycheck in it before the transition.
Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
Yeah, a couple of things. When you first started this process, I was pretty much against it, and the reason why was because I felt like it was going to put a hardship on some of our lesser paid individuals in the system. Since then, I've discussed it with other entities who went with this, and I found out that I was probably wrong, that once you get moving and within the first 30 days or so, everybody becomes very accustomed to how we pay, and it doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. The issue, I think, is probably going to be when we first switch over. Some individuals, not just at the county, but in other occupations also, live from check to check. So what I would like to find out, one of 2 things. First off, does anybody know what it would cost, and I'm putting you on the spot, does anybody know what it would cost that we move the biweekly payroll up a week and just give them 2 weeks check, even though they got one coming, we give them 2, and then we're basically paying them ahead a week. So especially from a certain, and I'm just talking this for discussion to the commissioners, especially if we did it from a certain pay level down. In other words, so let's say somebody that made whatever now, they would get their first $13 minimum that we're going to do next year. They would get it the first week instead of the second week in October, and we just start with a 2-week check at that time and start moving forward with 2-week checks instead of 1 week. That way they would have a 2-week check to cover their second week. The other option would be, if that's too expensive or not doable because of your software or whatever, the other option would be that the county come up with a system where an individual that absolutely lives week to week and can't survive a week without a paycheck, waiting on the 2 week to come, could the county offer some kind of a loan that they could loan them to get a second check during that month to cover that week, and then take it out over a period of time, a little bit at the time. So I think we need to do something for the lower paid individuals within the system. I really do. The people that it's going to hurt the worst, it's not going to hurt somebody at a certain level that if they know the check's coming next week, they just wait an extra week and they get all the money from the 2 weeks plus their 5.38% if they're above $13, or if they're making
They go to 13.
12 now and it goes to 13, and then it may be if they know it's coming and that they can get prepared or what have you, it may not be an issue. But for a few individuals, I just would like to have some kind of a buffer in there where we don't make them suffer for a week.
Yes, sir.
And I think you could do it either through a loan or either by moving it up a week or what. There's other things that we could do here. And I just throwing these out for discussion by the board and see what other board members seem to think. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Julianne, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just to answer one of your first questions, we did run the numbers on what a weekly payroll cycle would be, net all the benefits, so minus anything that wouldn't be required in a wage. So FICA obviously included, but insurance not. And it's roughly for 1 week's payroll, our portion, employee portion and employer portion is just under $350.
350,000
Yes, sir.
a week.
Yes, sir, across all funds. Everybody.
Made the hair on the back of my damn neck stand up.
It's a lot of money, sir. Yeah,
lots of money.
I looked
That's
at
a
that
lot
same
of
number.
money
That's a
for-
lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Ooh,
Kind of shocked me too when I asked the same question a week
wow.
or so ago, yeah.
So what about the loan deal? Is that a possibility somehow if we just offered a loan to the people who needed it to get by that extra week, and then maybe they only needed half a paycheck to get to the next paycheck where it would be back on track again, and then take it out over a period of time or something?
I did research that a little bit, because I wanted to make sure that it was legal under the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, and it appears that pay advances and loans can be done, but there was a very big caution about that. The caution being that every employee who participated in it would have to sign a promissory note that is exactly like what a bank would do. They recommended that the county act almost exactly like a bank if they were to do that. Obviously, the county wouldn't have to charge interest, but the other caveat to doing a loan that way we would have to ensure that on the deduction portion, when we're taking the money back, if we do it's kind of like a pay advance loan, that we make sure that their minimum wage for each pay period does not fall below the minimum federal wage, which is still $7.25 an hour right now. So that's extremely low, but that is the one thing that by law we would have to do, and we'd have to make sure that each paycheck there on out, their hours balance out to at least $7.25 or greater.
Well, the reason I wanted to have this discussion today was for these kind of, what we're talking about, to have this kind of knowledge. So do you think that maybe it would be to the advantage for us to maybe come up with a third-party vendor that would agree to get involved in this for somebody that was in dire straits or needed it just for enough to get through, or are we getting too far into somebody's personal life by trying to come up with that? I just don't know.
That third party is going to charge that employee interest as well. They're not going to do it for free. This part of the staff, this part of the house is going to caution you against a loan structure for a number of reasons. But we would need considerable communication on the implications of that and the logistics to implement such, and the caveats that the board would need to take if an employee on the day after they receive that loan terminated employment. To what extent are you going to collect those taxpayer dollars from that employee who now is severed employment with you? So
I'm talking about the third party doing it, then they would be obligated to the third party if we ended up doing that instead of doing it in-house.
And
I
that's
just needed all this discussion.
Yes, sir.
I needed it in front of the board, or I was wasting everybody's time.
And that's why I wanted to put it on this workshop so that we could have this sort of discussion. Julianne is absolutely right. That is what that precaution was for, that they said, because if somebody did get a pay advance that was larger than their weekly paycheck that they were going to receive next time, the only way to enforce that in court through civil action would be if they had signed a promissory note. You could take them to court, small claims court, to try to get the county money back. Awesome. Another option that we kind of discussed internally is if the board, in looking at the budget this year, if you guys had the ability to do a one-time bonus or a one-time payment for that one-off week. I don't know that it would have to be a great amount, because the staff will be receiving that next biweekly check on the 14th that has their pay raise in it. That was something that we kind of discussed internally, but again, it is completely up to the board and you guys when you're talking about how you're going to structure your budget and how you're going to structure those pay increases to be enacted going into next fiscal year. So that was another possibility, since you guys are giving some raises, but I haven't been involved with the budget, so I don't know. Again, that's, like I said, if I could make that call, I would, but I can't. So.
Done for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk.
My name's Matt. You're good.
No.
Thank you.
It's not. What if we went to bi-monthly? What if we went to the 30th of September, the 1st of October, the 15th of October? Then all this conversation kind of goes away. Tell me the downside of the bidding paid on the 1st and the 15th. I know maybe somebody didn't work. I kind of get that.
Right.
But that might solve the whole problem.
So the way that our payroll kind of works now is, and this is where y'all may have to correct me because I can't remember if it's Saturday night at midnight or if it's Sunday night at midnight that the pay period, is it Saturday night? Saturday night at midnight, the pay period rolls over. So for example, the week we're in right now, the pay period started Sunday at 12:01 a.m. It'll run till this Saturday at midnight. So the timesheets for all of that have to be turned in Monday morning. Payroll's processed, direct deposit file is sent off on Tuesdays, is that right? And depending on your bank, some employees receive their money on Tuesdays, some get it on Wednesdays, some get it on Thursday, some might not get it until Friday, which is the actual payday. So if we paid on the 30th, which would be the payment for the pay period of that previous, it would have ended that previous Saturday night, and then you tried to pay on October 1st, what pay period we wouldn't have a pay period we'd be paying on. That first bi-monthly wouldn't be until October 15th to cover the pay period that picks up from the 30th forward, if that makes sense. Because there's always there's a lag in payroll. Some entities have a week lag in payroll, but we're on a very tight timeline when we do payroll, that when the pay period ends Saturday night at midnight, oftentimes county departments are filling out their timesheets Friday afternoons because Heidi needs them Monday morning first thing. She's got to run payroll so that the direct deposit file can go out Tuesday. So we're kind of on a really tight timeline when it comes to that process. So if we did do bi-monthly, I think the first one probably wouldn't be until October 15th, which is, it'd be on the 14th. Well, yeah, it just depends on if we would decide if we pay them on the Monday or the Friday if it fell on a weekend like that.
Saying they would get a lesser check if they got paid on the 1st, they'd only get 1 week.
They'd only get, yes,
Right.
they'd get from the 24th,
Till-
25th at 12:01 until, right, yes, sir.
Okay. Just trying to make a solution here, but.
Yeah, yep. That's what we stood around and talked about it and tried to, and it's really hard because to do something, to push pay a week forward, because then we're basically paying for a pay period that we haven't verified yet and hasn't taken place yet.
But in lieu of trying to give bonuses or something to try to get people over the hurdle, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but, you know, we just need you to work 80 hours in a 2-week period. And after that first time, you're pretty much okay at that point.
Yeah, it's just that October 7th. It's just going to be that one Friday.
And we budget for their whole annual salary anyway.
Correct.
So I think I'd rather take the chance on that. I don't know. Thank you. All right, I'm thinking.
And again, like I said at the beginning, it's something to place in all of your minds. It's something that we can continue to talk about. Obviously, we have several months before we get there, and like I said, we have July, which is a 5 pay week month, September, a 5-week pay month. So, and we have obviously more budget hearings and discussions coming up.
Well, I'd rather take a chance on our employees, and they'll do the right thing and work for us, and they get paid, and maybe that puts them over the hump, doesn't? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Adams-Ack?
I guess
Hang on, Susan.
So you said bi-monthly, which means our employees would only get 24 paychecks in a year instead of 26. I wouldn't think they would like that either.
No, the employees would not support moving to bi-monthly any more than what they are supporting moving to bi-weekly, but bi-weekly is better or more advantageous for your employees than a bi-monthly.
Right, but he said bi-monthly.
I just didn't know what the solution might be.
Right.
I just wanted to be sure you understood what you were
Don't take
saying.
me out and hang me yet. Make a comment.
Commissioner Adams-Ack?
I think the only thing with the loan is I don't think everyone would do it, first of all, and I don't think everyone that did it would quit.
That's true.
So to me, that's a lot less risk than giving a 1-week bonus of $350,000 to everybody. So even if half the people took it and they quit on us that week, which would be a disaster that's beyond what
You'd
this
have bigger
would be,
problems if that happened.
it still would only be a cost of like half of the $350,000. I lean towards that. I do like the idea if there was a way to manipulate the time frame where that first bi-weekly was on the 7th, and maybe do a 1-week pay period about where you said it.
Yeah,
with
the
fiscal
timing will
year,
get, we'd still
kinda-
have to do some sort of deduction longer term
Yeah.
to get that week back. that we advanced.
But I like what Mr. Turner said about that, just because it's the first week of the month, and our fiscal year happens to end where the first week of the month is a pay period, where you'd skip it if you didn't bi-weekly right at that point. I'd love to see if we could start the bi-weekly on the 7th, just because it is the first pay period. And I do like the fact that we are giving a raise right there to everybody. We are at, like you said, a 5-week pay period, 5 weeks in a month, the month prior. That should alleviate a little bit of it. And the fact that their last paycheck in September is literally the last day of September. They really could be looked at as the first day of the month paycheck. I think the timing of this works out where I don't think it's gonna have as much impact as it might any other time of the year,
Right.
if any other year. So I'm almost for just letting it fly with the option of a loan to a few employees that would ask for it and go from there. And if we lose out on, I agree with having the promissory note, but if 6 people get that $500 check or whatever it is and they quit, that's less than $350,000 for the whole staff for a week's pay, so.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
You get a lot of employees that are making less than $13 an hour. And inflation is just killing them right now. I don't know if it really matters when you make the adjustment. It's going to be painful no matter what, because their spendability is decreased every single day, it seems like. I'm trying to wrap my head around the concept of the 7th, though. If you go the 7th, then their next paycheck is the 21st, and then the 4th of November. Is that correct? Just
And
rolling
actually, we'd have
just
to.
rolling every 2
Didn't we
weeks.
talk about that, Heidi? And it would end up, they'd get an extra paycheck in the fiscal year if we did it a week early, I think. So it would, yeah, so we'd also have to like find another week somewhere in the year where it'd be like 2 weeks before they got another bi-weekly. So we kind of bounced that idea around and we're like, that might not be the greatest thing either, because it would just throw that timing off all year.
I'm just trying to put myself in their position because if they're living week to week, paycheck to paycheck, literally, and even if you push them to $13 an hour, the state's minimum wage went to 15. Everybody else is already at 15. So I don't know that there's going to be a point in time where we're going to be able to do anything for anybody that's going to prevent the pain that this is going to cause. I think it's the right thing to do for the taxpayers. I think it's the right thing to do for your staff. I had a conversation about, the person that wants to go take off and go on vacation for a week and, the resource that you lose. So it would give that, you'd have a little bit of time where if you did lose somebody for whatever reason, for an illness, you would have time in between to be able to recoup that. But the loans are going to require service, and we don't have the staff to do that. And I don't even know if the loan is going to get them where they need to be. So if I understand this correctly, they'll get a paycheck on the last day of September, and then the 7th of October.
It would be the 14th, would be the first bi-weekly, and it would be basically 2 weekly checks together just on the 14th.
Paul just said the 7th.
That's if we moved it up a week, but in order to go to bi-weekly and have those first 2 pay periods, it'd have to be on October 14th.
So then they would not get a check on the 7th.
The 7th would be the first week that they would be without like a normal, regular weekly paycheck. They would
I
just
think
get it
that's-
7
I think
days
that's gonna
later
hurt a
on the
lot of our
14th.
employees. I think that's going to hurt a lot of our employees. If they're budgeting week to week, they're not going to have the resources and the funds to get necessarily all the way to the 14th. I think we need to have a conversation at the department level with all the employees and maybe have another conversation about this in the future. It sure would be fun to hear from some of the employees themselves. I think we should be able to give them the opportunity to come in and see what the impact's going to be, because they'll know better than us.
Sure.
I know I've had employees in the past that made car payments every week.
Yep.
Commissioner Turner?
One of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation this early is to make sure that we can come up with the principle that we need to do this. I was hoping we could come up at some point with some kind of a loan, some kind of something that would make it easier for some of the people, because the last thing I want to do, this commissioner wants to do, is hurt anybody by doing this. But by the same token, it's necessary, because if we don't, it's gonna cost a lot of money to continue under the same system that we're continuing under. We've had that conversation on TV before, so, I think this is something that we need to do. And I think the key to it, absolute key to it, is notification and education of the employees as early as we possibly can, and continually doing it we need to put a note
Every
in
week.
every paycheck,
Every
or
week.
at least every other paycheck. We need to put a note in there in red
Yep.
letters that says, come October 7th, you're not gonna get a check, but you're gonna get double check on the
Yeah.
14th.
You'll get your 7th, the paycheck from the 7th on the 14th, and you'll also get the
Understand, but I-
paycheck for the 14th. But yes, yes, sir.
Give them plenty of notice. We don't wanna wait until the middle of September and tell them, okay,
Oh, yeah.
by the way, October 7th, you're not gonna get a check. We're gonna cripple some people. So I think that, the first thing we need to do at some point in the very near future is decide that we are gonna do this, if we are, and then start the education notification project now, early as possible. Let people know that we're planning on doing it. And if the and instruct our department heads, like Commissioner Rawls said, instruct our
Talk with their
department
staff.
heads to start talking to the individuals.
Absolutely.
And if one of them says, look, I can't make it 2 weeks, I can't make it 2 weeks, I pay my rent weekly. I mean, you believe that happens?
I know.
in today's
Yeah,
world.
I-
I pay my rent
absolutely.
weekly. So if you don't give me a paycheck on Thursday, I'm gonna have to
homeless.
sleep in my car for the next week until I can pay rent again. So if that turns out that we have individuals that work for the county that's gonna cripple, then this commissioner is gonna try his best to come up with a program. And if that means that it inconveniences our staff, I truly am sorry. But I'm telling you, this commissioner is gonna try not to cripple people over that week's work. So what I would like to see happen is I'd like to maybe make the decision real quickly, if we're gonna do this, make the decision, start the notification and the education and whatever, and let the department heads be open and start talking to their employees. Somebody that makes 50,000 plus a year, if they can't make it another week, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna cry a tear. They just need to get theirself in order. But somebody that makes $11 an hour that's fixing to go to 13, that's not the same ballgame.
That's right.
So if they'll start talking to the individuals and find out who can and who can't make it, then maybe we do need to come up with some kind of a program. If this is 3 individuals, like Commissioner Adams Act said, it's not gonna take a tremendous amount of staff time to keep it 3 individuals working in this process. If it turns out that it's 270 individuals, that's a different ballgame. We don't have
Right.
the staff to do that. So,
Right.
but I think we're not gonna know that until we make the decision once and for all that we are gonna go to the bi-weekly payroll, starting the new year, October 1st, starting October 1st, and then we can start notifying people of what's going on and see if we can do it. I still think we need to keep open minds enough to where if we're gonna
Absolutely.
cause a lot of pain, we got to figure out how to stop that pain. I'm just telling you. So, I'm for bi-weekly now. I think that we're gonna have to do it because of the costs of weekly payroll. The cost savings. But also, like I said, I'll reiterate it one more time, we need to make sure that our department head starts education. It may be that we have our HR department go and start talking to the different departments and say, okay, this is coming. We want you to understand it's coming.
Right.
If there's no way you can make this happen and you're gonna be crippled, come talk to me on Tuesday afternoon or next week, and let's see if we can work something out to where you're not in a terrible condition here. So I would like to see that happen. First, we've got to make the decision, and I think it needs to happen pretty quick if we're gonna do this, and I think we should. And so the next thing is how do we get there? What do? We need a program in place where no employee falls between the cracks, no employee.
That's right.
So through education, notification, and listening to our employees, I can't do that. I pay my rent every Thursday afternoon, I get my check. I pay my rent that afternoon by the week. I don't have the money if you don't do it. Pay attention to what they're saying, and then we'll come up with a program to make that work. I just think that's what we got to do. Hopefully I'm fretting too much. But I'm afraid there's gonna be a few people that's just gonna need some help through that
Yeah,
week.
I'm pretty sure there'll be several employees that
Thank you,
would.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Adamsack?
What's the savings again for going to biweekly?
Well, in last year's
Approximate.
budget request, I requested, well, I didn't request an additional position. In order to stay on biweekly, I stated we would need an additional position in the finance department. There's just not enough coverage within the finance department at doing it weekly. So another staff person plus benefits would be, I don't know what it would be
100
now.
plus?
It's, I don't know that it'd be that much. It's 75 with
I think that's
health
pretty
insurance and maybe a little more.
So just considering what we're gonna save, maybe find a way to do a bonus equal to that first year savings to people $15 an hour under or $18 an hour under, something like that. Figure out a line in the sand. I agree, we do need to go to it sooner than later because we need to have the cost savings for the county overall. But maybe do a bonus based on that savings for the first year and spread that evenly across all those employees at a certain pay level. And that way it's a net equal for the county budget compared to this year to last year for that particular thing. And go from there. That's just an idea. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
I think it needs to be stated too that you could have an employee making $40,000 or $50,000 a year. That used to be a lot of money. In today's dollars, it's not. Especially if you have a single wage earner in the family. That would equate to two $12.50 an hour people if they were making $50,000 a year. I think the impact can be just as severe, if not more, on folks that are in that area where they. There's no doubt in my mind that we have a lot of employees that qualify for a lot of social services and benefits that people that are making $40,000, $50,000 will not qualify for. So I don't think that we need to begin to figure out them. I'm leaning towards being in favor of giving the one-time bonus in the 7th to get everybody through. I'd like to see what a percentage of payroll that would impact. I think it would do several things. Number one, it would be a more meaningful pay raise, in that we know what we're facing right now with inflation. I saw a news article last night that said that we're going to probably tip $6.50 a gallon in Florida by the end of the summer, and 6.5% inflation. So that this is really going to have a significant impact. So whatever pay raises that we're giving, anybody north of $13 an hour is getting 5.5% or less. That's not going to cover what they're eating. So I'd like to see what that $350,000 looks like as against the total payroll in a percentage. Is it 1%? I mean, I guess I could multiply 350 times 52 and answer my own question. We're about $18 million a year. And if I take 1.9, yep. So,
Well, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
okay, good.
It sounds like there's a lot of different ideas, and it may be useful if you guys want me to run a number of scenarios while we were sitting here. I gave you the number of just if we ran a flat week's payroll. An additional idea that we may have is that if we took just the wage earning of a $13 an hour person, multiplied that times 37.5 hours, which is what our average work week is, you're roughly getting a $500 wage check. Now, don't worry about insurance for a hot second. If we were to give all BOCC employees a $500 stipend or some sort of, however you want to call it, you're roughly just under $200,000. So that might be an additional alternative that would be a lesser impact than 1 week's payroll, but still carry everybody through at some level for 1 week.
But is this with, is this a flat dollar amount with no tax implication for them, or do they have to pay Social Security and income tax on it?
They have to pay Social Security, as do
Always
we.
have to pay that.
So that's rough numbers for both sets of, wages of what would come out of
But
the impact
is the
of the board.
500, that's their net or that's their gross?
Gross.
And what do you think, So what would $450, because I think most folks would probably be in that 12 to 14%. So if they got between $400 and $450, that's a $10 an hour net. So you're saying this would just be some cushion to
Well, it would honestly be for those lower employees currently making $10 an hour. It'd be more net than what they're taking home
Okay.
on any given day. So what I'm saying is, yes, sir, it would just allow a little bit of a cushion for all employees to carry them through. Because what we have had multiple meetings as department heads and executive directors, and what we're finding is not the minority, but the majority of all of our employees are living paycheck to paycheck. That's how they've been.
That's the point. So what I'm told is the people that are making $20, $22, $24 an hour. If you've got somebody that has a loved one at home that cannot work for whatever reason, and you've got a single wage earner and they're making $24 an hour, I think this is gonna be more dramatic for them,
Sure.
and more of an impact than it would be for somebody making $10 an hour. There's a lot of social services that our employees probably take advantage of, I'm guessing, on the lower end. But that's always been that problem with the middle-class Americans, where there's this tipping point where if you make too much, you actually have less spendability at the end of the year than the people making half of what you're making.
Sure. And so that, again, that was just an alternative option. If we were able to give everybody one set stipend just to pull them through on those critical items that would come due during that week. And then by the time the 14th rolled around, they would have a double
They get them
paycheck.
the 7th of October. So they get a paycheck on the 30th normal.
Yes, sir.
That's one under the
And then a
weekly,
stipend, and then the 14th would be a double paycheck
weeks.
at the new wage amount.
I think we should propose it to the employees, I think the employees need to have input. Let's see what they say. Maybe they say this helps us get over that hump and we're okay with it and no big deal. I don't know. I personally don't think that we need to impose anything without hearing from the staff. So how do you ask that question to 300 plus employees?
That's very difficult.
Is he done?
Okay. Mr. Turner?
Thank you. My problem with all this is I just don't know how big this issue's even gonna be. Like Commissioner Adams Act said, if we're talking about 6 people, then we can deal with the 6 people and not try to give a complete bonus across the board to everybody to make, we don't need to kill a gnat with a baseball bat. There's a certain number of people that aren't gonna have any money next week, at the end of next week, if you give them 3 weeks' check. They're gonna spend every penny of it, and they're still not gonna have any money next week. I've had some of them working for me my entire life, so I know they spend whatever they have to that amount and have to borrow money on Tuesday afternoon to make it to paycheck on Friday. Those people are not gonna change. So if, I think that the thing to do, like I said earlier, I think that we do have to do exactly what Commissioner Rawls just said. We're gonna have to make the commitment that we're gonna do this. That needs to be step 1. Step 2 needs to be notification and education, and talking to the employees through the department heads and find out how big of an impact this is gonna be. They need to have a meeting, and every department needs to have a Monday morning meeting. Every single department head needs to have a Monday morning meeting that they call everybody in and say, okay, October 1st, we're going to bi-weekly payroll. October 7th, you're not getting a check. But on October 14th, you're gonna get a bigger check with a raise
Right.
of 5.38 or up to $13 an hour. So they can get prepared, and by the end of that meeting, and our department head should have an idea of about how big of an issue that we got going on here. Is it 6 people? Is it
Their whole department?
the
Is it?
whole
Yep.
department? How many people are we talking about here? So I think we need to make the decision sooner rather than later that we are gonna do this. I think we've almost got to for the savings. And then after that, I truly believe that we need to, the next thing is we need to start having our notification, educational meetings with our employees. Send out a note, meet with them, have our department heads meet with them, tell them what's going on, and let's find out how big of an issue this really is, and not just be caught off guard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, before I go to Paul, Commissioner Adamsack, Julianne, you had a comment?
Yes, sir. I was advised just to remind the commission that this does impact the union, both of our unions. At this time, we can't discuss the negotiations, but it is an impact.
Well, they can
Which
request
part?
impact bargaining.
Which part, the part about going to 2 week or, okay, so basically, I don't know what question I could ask that would be allowed. Well, I understand, but I need to know too, Rich, because all the people that work for BOCC, other than those union personnel, deserve the notification. Are you saying we can't notify and tell them that that's what our plan is to go to bi-weekly, or is it too early to make that decision until you get done with your talks, or until you decide if we can? I mean, I'm sorry to ask this, but I kind of need to know.
No, I mean, as far as the notification, they know. I mean, it's part of the conversation.
Okay. So we can't make that decision yet, is what you're telling us? Okay. Well, then we may as well go to the next item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
I was gonna say, and I will discuss, I go to the pre-agenda meeting, so we'll discuss this a little further maybe. But I think most employees know that this is where we're headed. And I know each commissioner wants to make it as painless as possible for these, because I guarantee you, every one of us sitting there and here at some point in our lives has been in that. And as
Absolutely.
Commissioner Rawls says, it may be somebody who makes $70,000 here, and his wife made $75,000, and they bought a new house last year, and for some reason she's not at work anymore. They may have a sick, family member, so it's going to affect everybody up and down the pay scale. So, but what I've heard today is we want to make it as painless as possible. So, Commissioner Adamsack?
I'm good for now.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
Do we have any, in any of the bargaining agreements, is there anything that stipulates that they're paid weekly? Is that spelled out in the wage packages? So, I don't know if this is an impact or not, depending which direction we go, but are you saying that we can't have a negotiation, we cannot discuss this with the employees without opening impact bargaining, or?
No, I'm just reminding you that there's a simultaneous conversation that's going on with the two unions right now. I mean, we can't discuss what's occurring in those negotiations, but just to let you know that this
Oh,
is,
you're currently negotiating, you're saying? Correct.
yes, we're in negotiations with the CBAs.
Okay.
Okay, we're not going to make a decision today, is what it sounds like. But can we please, you run some scenarios like you talked about, and then we'll update the commission at each meeting, okay, on how we're moving forward with this, and I guess what you can say with the negotiations with the union also. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Okay.
Mr. I was just going to say, like we did with the previous discussion of the board on what we're looking at doing as far as employees this year, that came out of our early budget discussions. What we did is we created a memorandum and sent it out through Human Resources. So what we'll do is as far as notification of Mr. Reynolds' target date of September 30th, with a follow-up of October 14th being the first biweekly, we'll generate another memorandum out of HR for all of our employees, so that we'll make sure that it gets in everyone's hands, and then we'll just follow up continuously with staff in that manner.
Okay. All right, before we close this out, any individual making public comment on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to the next agenda item, the item D, Administration Animal Control Facility. And before we get started, this is something that each one of these commissioners want to get completed. The previous commission wanted to get this completed. I want to thank Commissioner Rawls for all his efforts and everything that he has done to come up with the conceptual drawing and everything. But at this point, and I'll turn it over to Julianne, is that staff needs direction on how we move forward with this project. So, Julianne?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. As you mentioned, Commissioner Rawls took the lead for the animal control, so we're really just seeking board direction on how we move forward at this point. The desire that the board gave consensus on was ultimately they wanted to end with a construction manager. We do have a conceptual set of plans at this time, but not a set of plans that are complete enough to procure the construction manager. So we have a couple of different options that we can bring before you. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice too. But we did release our normal annual continuing services for architectural and engineering services, and we did award those at the May 24th board meeting. So that's a viable option. We can do a standalone RFQ. That's a viable option. We can entertain a lot of different viable options. We just need direction from the board at this point, how you want to move this project to the next stage.
Okay. Commissioner Rawls?
Okay, so there's a lot of misunderstanding, misconception, I don't know. Just a construction manager can be hired, and we discussed this back in January, to come in, and what they would do is they would finish up the process. They would get with the staff and decide what windows are going to go in here. Are they going to be aluminum storefront like we have here? We're going to buy something off the shelf from Home Depot or Lowe's? Whatever it is, the construction manager discusses that with the county, decides what our appetite for it is, and then they pick that. These plans, as pointed out by Mr. Siafi, are not ready to go to permitting because you're not complete. Doors, windows, your roofing, your soffit, all those materials have to be selected. You could go low end off the shelf from Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some $1 a square foot vinyl. You could go with metal soffit. A metal roofing system, is it going to be 22, 24, 26, 29 gauge? There's a whole litany of questions that have to be answered. That's why you bring the construction manager in now. The construction manager's job at that point would be to finish these plans up before they go to a structural engineer, because the structural engineer needs to take the components and cladding and make sure that they meet the design pressures that are intended for our part of Florida. They would also engage an electrical contractor who would do the electrical design themselves. This does not require an electrical engineer unless the county requires it. This would not require. It could be designed by the electrician themselves. They would provide the riser diagram, the panel schedule, and the conductor sizing. Because it's under 600 amps, this facility we estimate only needs less than 400 amps, to be honest with you. Same thing with the plumbing. You would hire a plumber who would do the isometric drawings. They would supply the pipe sizing and all the fixture units. The fixture counts. The boilerplate that goes along with the handicap accessibility and all that, the architect will provide once everything else is decided upon. At that point, you hand it over to a structural engineer and say, here, can we get you to take a look at this? He'll go through, make sure that everything that's called out in the notes meet the intent of the code, and then they would sign and seal that. I have an engineer that's willing to do that as well. But we have to get a construction manager that will sit down and take the time to go through and pick out the windows, the doors, the siding, the roofing materials. We're not going to call it out and force this on the citizens. I can tell you this, a local charter school went out for a construction manager, I believe in March of this year, to build a standalone classroom building with a couple of classrooms in it, a little 2,000 square foot building. We were selected for that, my company was. We just applied for permits. We were given less information than this, and we're already permitting. But we collaborated with the staff. They said, we want these same type of windows. I said, do you want the identical windows? He said, well, if we can get the identical windows. I said, tell me who supplied your last windows. The roofing. He went in one direction, I was heading another. He said, nope, I want this roofing. I want to be able to put solar on top of it. I said, fine, we'll do that. The advantage is the owner makes the decisions in collaboration with the construction manager instead of having this just being imposed on the owner. But you got to get the construction manager retained. I would suggest that we hire a construction manager not at risk. We've discussed this before. A construction manager not at risk puts the onus on the taxpayers, but it saves us a tremendous amount of money. And at this point, that's what we're looking to do. We're trying to get this thing built within budget. The good news is the lumber index is 525 this morning, where it was 1,350 back in March. So we've got a steep decline in cost of lumber, but not all building materials, only lumber. But I think if we do this correctly, if we do this the right way, we'll be able to still deliver this thing with the $750,000 as budgeted. But it is ready to go to a construction manager. We just have to get that person on staff or hired. And we've been talking about this since January.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to wait for my comments if you don't mind.
Okay, Commissioner Turner?
There's probably some merit to discussing maybe a design build, or and use this as a basis for design. But I don't think that the county should go out and hire a project manager. Jeff's calling it a construction manager, but it's basically a project manager, to come in. My problem is, who at the county is gonna make all these decisions? I'm not asking you, I'm just
Okay.
saying that's my problem. So you have to have a point of contact, somebody that's gonna be in control, somebody that's gonna own the project. Do we put the director in charge of animal control and say, okay, build whatever you want? And then if he picks a window that we don't like, or a door that we don't like, or whatever, then we're gonna chastise him. And so, personally, I think what we need to do is we need to do because of statute, and what statute actually says is that we either need to, if we want the architect that drew these plans to continue on, then we need to do a standalone RFQ for that architect if he will come in and give us a price on finishing up. It really wasn't that much that it needs doing. They basically need the energy forms and things like that. They're done by whoever's hired to do the air conditioning or whatever later on. The truss engineering comes from the truss manufacturers. It's that sort of thing. But somebody does have to do civil drawings and a site plan. They have to do it. The county's got to live by the same rules I have. That's just the way it is. And so, but as far as the different building materials, if somebody could, if the animal control committee would, I don't know who, but somebody, you can't do this by committee. I'm just flat telling you can't. Every time the county's tried that in the last 15 years, you can't do it by committee. You have to do it by some individuals in charge. We did a project before I was a commissioner, and they let everybody do it by committee, and it ended up being twice as much money as they had to spend. And I agreed to negotiate with the county to bring the price down, and we did it for less than half of what the original bid was. But the only way I would do it is if I got the deal with the county administrator only, nobody else, or I'm out. And they agreed, and we went and negotiated a job that's just fine. It works just fine. It's out there at the community center in Interlochen. It works just fine for the intended purpose. It was half or less than what it was, what the original bid was. So, point being here is we either got, because of statute, I'm being told, we can't just waive and say, okay, let's just pay this architect money and let him finish up these plans, because by statute it won't let us do it. We've got to either put out an RFQ, and that architect would have to apply on that RFQ on this set of plans, or we would have to put it out as a basis for design or to a design build, who would then go secure an architect, this one or somebody else. Or we need to use one of our continuing services contractors to move forward. Those are basically the three things, the three ways we can go and do this by statute, other than hiring a full-time person to come in and be the project manager. You could do it by,
Construction manager.
you could do it by design, or by contract or whatever. But what you're doing then is you're saying, okay, Mr. John Smith, project manager, go do what you want to do. Put in whatever windows you want, put in whatever roofing you want, put in whatever, because nobody at the county is going to be here to make that decision. So it's not like you can deal with the owner or deal with one person or whatever. It's just not the way it works in this environment. So, we can talk about the way we wish it would be, or the way that we wish statute read something different, we could go and do all that, but that's not what it says. We got basically three options here that I see, and I already laid those options out. And it's either the RFQ, use of continuing services, or put it out for design build using this as a basis of design. I don't really see where the project manager would actually help in this particular situation, because there's just too many decisions yet to be made. I'm done for now, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Rawls?
It's not a project manager, it's a construction manager, and the construction manager would be a general contractor. So I serve in this capacity. I have in the past, and I'm currently serving, obviously, on a couple of projects. If you hired the right project manager, or a construction manager, now you got me saying it, the person comes with a very valuable skill set, and they save us a pile of money. They come to us. I mean, if you said, look, Jeff, we want hollow metal doors, I'll say, okay, we'll use Republic Doors. I'll call up Quality Hardware in Jacksonville. I'll have you cut sheet in about 5 minutes. We probably already have it in our office across the street. So we would give you a specification sheet, or whoever the construction manager is. And I'm not saying I want to be a construction manager on this one, by the way. But you know, getting the rest of the materials together, like Commissioner Turner said, whoever supplies the trusses will supply the truss engineering. It comes with it. Whoever supplies the siding will supply the Florida product approval information. But is it going to be vinyl siding, hardy board siding, LP smart side? Is it going to be stucco? You know, those decisions have to be made. There's stone shown on here, but at one point the commission said, we don't want to have the stone on there. So if those are decisions, and there's no reason why we can't sit up here and make those decisions. If somebody walked in from Shea Glass in Gainesville and said, hey, look, I can give you the storefront system with double pane low-E windows, this is what it would cost, and they would hand us the specifications that we need for that system. It's not, this stuff is not rocket science. It's not hard to get. You know, and to be perfectly honest with you, if you put me under crunch and gave me about 3 hours, I could give you everything else that you're looking for, minus the actual drawings themselves, as far as your submittal sheets and your product information. It's just that easy. And Commissioner Turner's right. You decide that you're going to hire XYZ HVAC company. They hire an energy rater that does the manuals that are required for the mechanical. And that calls out what size system you have to use. All we get to choose is what brand of equipment we want to use. So we don't have to put this out for bids like he's saying. We could hire a construction manager, and we can do it like that. The school district has done it in the past. Other agencies have done it. You know, so we just got to get that person on board. And it would benefit us to have a construction manager working for the county full-time that's willing to take on projects like this. Maybe they would have been useful to have on the courthouse for all we know. You know, instead of having to make a rush decision here at the end, we might have had somebody looking at this thing over the past 6 months. But, you know, it's the board's decision. We instructed staff to get a construction manager on board back in January. That's not happened. So I don't know why we're here today. You know, if this is somebody trying to thumb me in the eye, it's not going to work. So calling a dog's tail a leg doesn't make it a leg.
Trying to thumb you anyway.
Yeah, Jeff.
No, I'm not talking about you.
Mr. Rawls,
I'm saying it. There's been, every time this has been, the public has asked about this. Staff has no answers. They were told in January, go ahead and let's get a construction manager teed up. So where are we at with getting a construction manager? That's the question we should be asking right now.
Commissioner Adamsack?
I don't get the feeling that there's support at this time for construction manager. Although I would support it, I do like the idea of having a on-staff construction manager for all of our projects, but that's a separate thing from this. That's something that I think we should move towards as time goes. But at this point, we really need to move the animal control facility forward. And I think of the three things Mr. Turner said, design build sounds the most favorable to me of the three. I think that gives us a lot more flexibility and options, and potentially has the most likelihood that we save some money out of the deal. I don't know, I guess without hearing from the other commissioners, but I get the feel that construction managers just isn't going to happen. So I think design build would be the second best avenue to go, and I think we need to move it forward as soon as possible. And I really, when I got elected, I really thought we were going to break ground before the end of that first year, and we haven't. So it's amazing to me, but I guess, like Commissioner Turner said 1,000 times before I was here and since I've been here, the speed of government is something to be awed at. Thank you.
Commissioner Turner?
I've done construction management also quite frequently, but the difference is somebody has to be in control, and you can't do it by committee. It's never been successful if you try to do it by committee. So if you come in here, we can't even get through this conversation without a 30-minute conversation. If we tried to have a conversation about every color we wanted it painted, every type window that wanted to go in there, the cost of every type window, what kind of siding you wanted, what kind of pins you wanted, I'm talking about the whole conversation from start to finish on this project, we'd be in here 3.5 weeks and wouldn't be done. Because I don't know that we could all agree on every issue that went through the thing. So I don't see how a construction manager is gonna work unless we designate one individual to make all these decisions. I just don't see how it's gonna work. Somebody's got to be in total control and charge, or the construction manager thing's not gonna work. When the school tried it for a while, when they had Scott and that sort of thing, and they were doing that, Scott was 99% in control. He got to pick the colors, he got to do everything. He might ask a teacher here and there for their opinion or whatever, then he did what he wanted to anyhow, rather they said it. And that's just the way it is. I did work with him, I understand, that's just the way it is. Nobody wants us to move forward any worse than I do. It's been going on the whole time I've been here, and I've been here 4.5 years, and I understand that it was carried over 3 or 4 years before I ever got here. So I understand this is going on. You know, I want to join Chairman Pickens in commending Commissioner Rawls on getting it to the point it's at now, because we do. We have a solid basis for design, a conceptual set of plan, something that we want to move forward with from this point forward. I believe that we need to make the decision to either, I think we should just go ahead and get one to use this basis for design and either hire a design build firm, put it on the street for design build not to exceed, let them come in here, this is our basis for design. That's a solid basis for design. Do what? Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because it's a high possibility that they're gonna come in, we can tell them what our budget is, and there's a possibility they can come in at that point and say, okay, we're gonna use block walls on the outside, we're gonna strike the joints and we're gonna paint them, we're gonna make this nice, but it's not gonna be the Taj Mahal. We're not a Fortune 500 company that we're building the conference room for in the ivory tower up in New York City. And so, if they can take it to that level, a design build could take it to that level. But we just flat tell them our budget's $750,000. If you go over that, I'm just flat telling you we're not gonna do it. We're gonna take another route. So we either got to go that route, because I don't see the project manager working. I don't. Not in our instance, in this case. There are cases where it works. I just don't think this is one of them because nobody's in control. So it's either design, build, send the basis for design to one of our continuing services, or put it out for an RFQ, and each one of them is going to take more time. So, you know, I don't really care which way we go, but I think that one of those 3 ways is which way we go. I think that's what I think. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wouldn't say the construction manager is off the table, but I think I like what Commissioner Turner is saying. Basically, a design, let me get this straight in my head. Design build, we put it out, and Bob bids on it. And he says, well, we're gonna do metal siding, metal building, we're gonna do these pins like this, and then we decide if we like that, right? Is that how that would work?
On a design, you asked
Yes,
me,
sir.
okay, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're
So,
fine.
Design build, what you would do is you'd put out a basis for design.
Right.
For instance, we want a building that's so many square foot, we want it to resemble this one's gonna be our floor plan. Now our budget's $750,000, can you meet this budget? If so, tell me what you're gonna use.
Right.
And he would come in and say, he or she would come in and say, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in aluminum frame windows, not storefronts. We're gonna paint the outside of the building, we're gonna strike the joints, we're gonna put this on the front. And we're
Okay.
basically what the city did to the River Center. They had 2 or 3 different proposals on that. The person that came in with the cheapest proposal that'd make it work, built the River Center for the city under a design-build contract.
So under that, Fred could come in and go, you know, I'd rather see this as a stick-built building, but the budget's gonna be $900,000. And we could say, no, we can't afford that.
We could.
We could see a different
But he could
alternative.
also come in and say, if you change this around, I could build it for $661,000
why don't
instead
we-
of $750,000.
Then Commissioner Rawls has you've been preaching since you got here about design build. I think this is a good opportunity to put it out there on the street and say, bring us back your set of plans. This is a conceptual, what we think we want, but now you come back and tell us what we can do.
I think
And
that
I'm
would-
fine with that.
I think that would be the thing to do. I
Yeah.
think we should put this out for design build and let somebody use, the plans that Commissioner Rawls furnished as a baseline conceptual set of plans and move it forward, and then they can get their own civil drawings and they can get their own other stuff. Now, they're gonna have to change them all unless they go hire the guy that drew these plans. They can't take those plans and add the things to them.
No, I'll give access.
Yeah, they could go to that architect and pay him to finish them off. It wouldn't be an issue at all.
And it would be by committee, it'd be by this board deciding that we want to go with Fred, because Fred has a better design that fits our budget, and he says he can bring it in. And it might be a steel building with a facade on it, and, I mean.
Well, it might be that
anything.
it would need, the proposals might need, once they were rank ordered by the committee, that they would probably then need to go to animal control.
Right.
To make sure there wasn't anything in there that they just were adamantly against or whatever.
And the plans come to us and the building's purple and green and we don't like that, and, you know, I mean,
That ain't gonna they'll change things like that. There's
No, I'm
no
just
cost-
saying, I'm
No
just-
cost to change.
yeah, I get it, but I'm just,
They're probably not gonna pick colors. They're gonna probably, at some point, even with a construction manager, somebody's gonna have to pick colors.
sure.
You know, I would say it would be whoever the head of
Yeah.
animal control facilities is, whoever.
But it
that
might give us some really cool concepts out there that somebody could bring in and say, I can do it for this.
is. That's right.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
I'm just gonna tell you unequivocally, you're not gonna build it for the budget if you go that direction. So when you hire a construction manager not at risk, you take part of the cost off the table, because you're taking you're taking the risk off the table as far as they're concerned. As far as, and you're in risk management, you know what I'm talking about. The other thing is, it just doesn't make sense that we wouldn't build this thing with the construction manager. I mean, what we're telling the public right now is we don't have anyone that in our organization of 300 people that has the ability that we can trust to sit down and do something as simple as selecting a siding, a window, a door. You know, there's some pretty low-hanging fruit. I mean, I would imagine we're gonna just do some basic, like those steel hollow core frame doors over there. You know, if that's the flavor, then we should do that. But I will be the first one to say that I'm shocked if you can deliver this thing for $750,000 or less, because the base building itself is around 4,000 square feet. And at current construction costs, and that's what you're talking about doing, is you're gonna bring in a general contractor that will hire an architect, that will hire an engineer, that will hire a civil engineer. They'll get all that done, and they're gonna come in there, and I'm guessing we're probably gonna be in the $1.5 million to $2 million range when it's all said and done with with 2 kennels attached. Whereas if we went with the construction manager, we bring them in, we supply the materials to the extent that we can. Obviously, we choose what materials we want to use. And why don't, one question that's running through my mind is, why don't we have a basic set of design standards for the county? I mean, why don't we have that for small construction projects? Already hammered out in writing, so when you take on a small project, we don't have to go through this drill. But it would be an interesting drill for us to go through and lay down on paper. I personally think that the building would look good with storefront doors. I think as far as windows go, just do aluminum storefront like we have back there, make them low E, or if we want to do vinyl, we could do some vinyl frame windows to keep the cost down. But I'm not going to fight the board on it. It's your decision. You know, I'd like to see this thing built. I'd like to see it built for $750,000 or less. I know it can be done. If you guys saw what I saw in an email this morning regarding the cost of lumber and the price that I'm paying for lumber right now, you guys be jumping all over the opportunity to build this thing out of wood. You know, my wife has taken on a business for a building supply business, and we can get materials pretty cheap, but you're not going to get that. You go on the street for a design build contractor. In this case, we have a very limited amount of money. Now, if we're talking about ponying up another $500,000 or $1 million, then it's a whole different conversation. But what drove this conversation in the beginning was we only have $750,000. The state government won't give us any more money. We want to get this thing built. And I said, look, I can make it easy on us. Let's go through and get a construction manager. I'll get the design going. I've got the engineer and the architect teed up, and they agreed to do it. But now we're going in a different direction. And the board actually agreed to this in January, and we told staff, let's get us a construction manager on board. Was it March? Okay, March.
Okay. Commissioner Turner?
It's easy to sit here and say that it's no big deal to do this, and it's like there's just no big deal, and that somebody around the county ought to be able to do this. I'm not saying somebody doesn't have the ability to do this, but then who's gonna do their job while they're doing this? Because it's not like people are working for the county that don't have anything to do at the present time. So.
But the CM can do it. They can do it for
I
us.
didn't interrupt you, sir, and I just assumed you didn't interrupt me.
Terry.
Don't call me down for that one, Mr. Chairman. I'm just telling him I didn't interrupt him,
Okay.
and I'd just soon he not interrupt me. So I don't mind you calling me down when I've done something wrong. This time I didn't. So anyhow, I think there is more at issue here because if we had a construction manager, project manager, tomato, a project manager that worked for the county whose only job was to make these decisions, that would be a different situation. We don't have that person. And then I don't know that we need to grow government and hire that person just because we want the animal control facility to be built in a less than traditional manner. I don't disagree that it may cost more. But when we started budgeting this was at least 8 years ago, if not 10, was when they started rolling the 750 forward. Things didn't cost as much 10 years ago as they do now. Shoot, things cost double what they did a year ago in most instances, in our business, our outside business. So we may not can build this facility for $750,000, but we've got some reserves in that fund that we've kind of been putting forward as we've rolled that other. So we've got a little extra money in that fund that we've rolled forward over the years. Nobody expects us to do the same job that we were going to do 10 years ago when we started the budget in today's world on the same dollars. So yeah, it may cost a little more, but I think the next step, it's going to only cost more and more and more if we keep talking about how we're going to do it. So I think we do need to hire construction, a design build firm, put it out an RFQ for a design build firm. Tell them we got a $750,000 budget. Do the best you can to bring it in as frugally as you can. And I'm sorry, but it's an animal control facility. It's not a Fortune 500 company on the penthouse floor of New York. We want it nice. We want it comfortable for the animals. We want that, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't. Julianne's gave me the finger.
All right. Julianne, you have a comment?
Yes, sir. Just one point of clarity to make sure there's no misconceptions after we leave here today. When you put out a design build RFQ, the the budget dollars are not released in the beginning. We have to reach a rank order first, because design build is much like architects. And then when we begin negotiations with that top ranked firm, we tell them, here's what the board set aside. And they may come back like everything else we do and say, I'm nowhere near that. And then we would go to the second ranked firm until we were able to negotiate something that we believed was more reasonably close to our budget. So, the county was criticized in our last operational audit for releasing that information. Actually, that was as we engaged a construction manager. So there are state rules that revolve around releasing those dollars early.
Take that one out of it, but we've
Okay.
got to get this process moving,
Yep.
and we need to get it moving correctly.
Absolutely.
Because this isn't the only project we've got coming up that we're gonna do this on. We've got the landfill offices that once they get kind of designed, we're gonna have to figure out a way to do them. It could be straight bid. I think you're fixing to send them straight on, so whatever. You know, it's just a matter of how we're gonna do business. I just think it is, and
I just
so-
wanted to make sure there wasn't any confusion if that's the direction the board goes, when the document's released.
So we can have some input on a design build project.
Absolutely.
We can tell them what we want. This is the basis for build. We want you to bring it in as inexpensively as you can.
We can.
But these are the things that we want, the minimum things that we want.
Absolutely.
We can do that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I want to ask a couple of questions, and I'm with you. We don't need to build the Taj Mahal. We need to build something better than what they currently have, and that bar is not very high at all. Trust me. Any building out there with a concrete slab would be better than they currently have. So, and we all been talking to, I say we all, I don't know that for sure. I know I've been talking to metal building companies, and they feel confident they can build something out there, just a standard box looking thing, and then facade it up after that for a lot less than this. Is there a way, and this is my question, because as much as I care about a new building, I care more about the facilities for the animals right now and getting that done. Is there a way to split that out? We already know what the kennels should look like, okay? Could we say you can bid on the kennels, or you can bid on the building, or you can bid on both of them if you want?
No, it needs to be one project.
Just need to be one?
I believe that.
Because I'm concerned, I really want to see those kennels come out of the ground. I mean, really, that's a pretty easy lift right there.
So keep in mind, sir, if we engage a design build firm like we're discussing, let's say the contractor that's selected ultimately comes back and allocates $1 certain to building the kennels, which is really chain link fence and concrete. We always have the right, okay, a little more advanced than that, but understanding what I'm trying to display to you is we always have the right to pull out a portion of the project and owner direct purchase it on behalf of it. So if you're saying, okay, this contractor who builds metal buildings may not be able to get chain link fence, then we could purchase the chain link fence and pull that portion out. But you would start as one whole package, and then we would begin what we would call value engineering discussions, and how can we bring this into budget, and what can we do to modify it. Those types of conversations could still take place once engaged.
Thank you.
Commissioner Adamczak?
The construction manager thing from a county employee perspective, I think, is where we need to go, exactly for the reason you stated, that we do have other projects coming up. We have this whole part of this building over here that's unutilized, that needs work. We're doing a roof. And someone that was in that capacity could be doing a lot of this work for us in the background. I just wanted to say that, and however we decide, I think we need, in this particular project, we need to start getting it out there as soon as possible. Just need to move forward, and I think design build is probably the cheapest way we can do it, given the non-construction manager position. That if I feel like, I thought we voted to do a construction manager before, but it sounds like obviously we're back here today, pulling back on that for some reason. I don't have the background of why that is, so.
Julianne, you want to address that?
I'll do my best, sir. At the March 8th meeting, when Commissioner Rawls gave the update and asked that we engage a construction manager, we had not seen those plans that he was providing at that time. That conversation came up in commissioner comments at the end. He advised he was ready, he was done. When those plans were delivered, they are not enough to engage a construction manager. I've talked to legal counsel, I've talked to my cohorts. In order to engage a construction manager, and I'm not telling you that somewhere, some way, someone hasn't done it backwards. What I am telling you is that the correct way to do it is that you would have a signed set of architectural plans to engage that construction manager on. The construction manager is there to manage the construction activity that is after you've got your architectural services signed, stamped, and sealed. And again, the county was criticized for the way they engaged a construction manager during the last operational audit that we went through. So again, I'm not telling you that somewhere, somehow, someone hasn't flipped the order, but of my procurement cohorts and of my legal counsel, we're out of sync with where we gotta go, and we've got to end, before we engage a construction manager, you've gotta have those signed, sealed plans. And typically, and this is not required, but best case scenario, you would put that engineering firm or engineer, architect on the committee to select your construction manager, because those two people are gonna work back and forth together continuously. Again, that's not necessarily a hard and fast requirement, but it is a best practice. And in this particular case, we're just missing a component, and that's why staff brought it to you, was simply, tell me how you want to proceed to get that component or change the direction we're going, but we just would like to go down a legal route in order to get to the point where we can break ground.
Commissioner Adams, right? Okay. Commissioner Rawls?
Who is your legal that you're talking about? Me. So it's your opinion that we cannot engage a construction manager to come in with a set of plans that's not build-ready, to take a project to fruition?
My understanding, that's a design build, you're hiring someone to.
No,
do
that's
design.
not, that's not true. Design build's something completely different. So I'll give you an example. Putnam County School District, bought the old Atlantic Bank. They hired Mandezi White as a construction manager. Mandezi White had a set of plans that were not complete. The plans were completed with Mandezi White sitting with the architect that worked for the school district. They then completed the plans, got everything done, and then brought it up out to bids. And then Mandezi White brought all the bids to the school district, and the school district picked which subcontractors they wanted for that job. That was a construction manager job. They did not have a 100% set of plans. So I'm gonna tell you right now, you're absolutely incorrect. Your cohort, your legal counsel, they're wrong. Construction manager, not at risk, would come in. They would finish the design, they would make all the selection, they would pull the permits, and they would build the building. That's all it is. If
Okay.
staff is unaware, that's one thing. But saying that it can't be done is ignorant, because that is not correct. It can be done. It is done all the time. It may not be done in Putnam County like you're talking about, but it can be done. And like Commissioner Adams said, and Commissioner Turner said, we're fixing to build offices out there at the landfill. Why would we not want to have this type of service available to save the taxpayers the dollars, to give our employees more pay raises, to save money, and get this animal services building built? That's all.
Commissioner Rawls, I appreciate your comments, but the ignorant, that's a little
Ignorant
hard
means
to
without
take.
knowledge. It's you know, it's ignorant for someone to say that the word ignorance is offensive, because it just means lack of knowledge. That's all.
Well,
And that's what I'm saying is, if we're ignorant as a board to what's real and allowable, that's our fault. But we can build this. We can hire a construction manager. They could sit down. I'll be more than happy to take the lead if that's what you guys want. I got the time to do it. I'll sit down with them. I'll go through here. We'll look at the design pressures on whatever siding. We've already discussed tentatively using lap siding but not using stone, so that's easy to accomplish. Pick out the windows, pick out the doors, pick out the roofing material, get all the submittal data ready to turn in, and then get the plans ready for 100% build. But you got to have that person. I can't be the construction manager. It's a conflict of interest, I feel like, to work as a general contractor for the county.
Administrator Suggs?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if my comments are going to do anything other than inflame a conversation we're already having, but railing on staff up here and is not going to make this problem any easier to fix. We got a problem we're trying to find a solution to. So railing on staff is not going to fix that this afternoon. And I'm going to be honest with you, when it comes to having conversations sitting here today, I'm going to listen to the 5 elected officials on how we're going to follow through on this process to find a solution. But I'm always going to take the advice of my sitting attorney over someone who's a contractor. That's just my opinion.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Turner, then we're going to make a decision on this.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'll hold any comments, because basically I was gonna just say that I'm very appalled at the lack of respect and the lack of that's just been shown to staff, and I think it shouldn't have happened, but that's fine. What I do want to say is if you want to move this forward, everything that's just been mentioned here this afternoon is a lot closer to a design build than it is to a construction manager, unless you have a full-time project manager on staff. My problem that I'm not going to vote for that. It may sound all sexy to everybody that's listening, but I don't think the county should be, or the city, or any other municipality, and I wasn't for the school system when they tried it for a while either, that public entity ought to be competing against somebody that's on the street having to live by a different set of rules that's feeding their family and keeping their lights on, and so they can't compete in that environment any longer. So I don't believe that we need to go that route. I really don't, because I don't want to start competing with all my construction people and the different subs and everybody else. I don't think the county ought to be there. I think that if we're going to move this forward, we need to make the decision to either go hire a design professional to finish this set of plans up and then put that set out for bid, or go out and put for bid for a design build process using this set of plans as a basis for construction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Adamczak?
If competing with contractors out there in the neighborhood or whatever saves our taxpayers a significant amount of money, I'm all for it.
I have no doubt.
So, and maybe that results in us being able to actually lower millage and help out people throughout our community, not just a few contractors. Another thing is, I think we need to move forward with this, so if the chair will entertain a motion, I'd like to make a motion on this.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we move this forward with the current plans under design build process in order to get this completed and on the street as soon as possible.
I second it.
Okay, we got a proper motion on the floor to move forward with a design build process, correct? Yes, sir. And we got a proper second by Commissioner Harvey. All right, before I move into the commissioner discussion, I'm gonna open it up for public comment. Any individual listener will make public comment on this item. Please come forward, state your name and address, speak clearly into the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Please direct all your comments to me.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Robert DeFranco, 123 Dream Pond Road, Crescent City, Florida. I'm the current acting chair of the Animal Services Advisory Committee. Ms. Ginny Oakwood recently had to step down. And I've been with the committee for a long time, since Linda Myers appointed me many years ago. Real quick, my background: I ran the Animal Behavior Center of New York and the Queens Community Animal Shelter for 13 years in New York City. I'm an educator. I'm with the American College of Applied Science, and we do animal science and behavior programs, and we also have a sanctuary in Crescent City. The committee is concerned because I believe this money has been set aside since 2019. And I'm listening to, I'm very familiar with Commissioner Rawls' argument, and I also, Mr. Turner, I understand about the design concept. By the way, I just texted Amy Carantino, who is the executive director of the Flag of the Humane Society. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it's a beautiful state-of-the-art shelter. And she gave me the name of the design company in, I think, Daytona that did the job. If anybody wants to speak with them, you know, you might get some ideas and how they designed that shelter. The committee's concern is that, well, first of all, let me start by saying that the animal control people do a heck of a job. They lose people all the time because it's a very stressful job taking care of all those animals, having to deal with potential bites, aggression, owners coming in, euthanasia. It's a tough job. And if you look at the Google reviews of our shelter, I think I saw 44 of them. Almost every review has 1 star. And again, it's not because of the staff. It's because of the fact that they're understaffed. Perhaps the pay rate is too low, I don't know. But we get, at my facility, we have an 800 number, and we get dozens of calls every month from people who say that they can't reach animal control. The phones aren't being picked up because they're fixing, you know, the shelter and taking care of the animals. The trucks aren't coming out to take care of aggressive animals, so they need help. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm speaking to you now because we shouldn't be one of the worst counties in the state as far as our animal services is concerned. Now, we are very happy about the fact that we are a no-kill shelter, but the shelter is at capacity almost all the time, and that's why it's so urgent that this facility is built and something is done to help them with their budget or whatever so they can run a more efficient animal control and serve the public. Because there are a lot of people in the public that are not happy about the way things are going. And this is what we're hearing in our advisory committee. I know that Commissioner Rawls has done a heck of a lot of work in the background with him and his wife with doing some of these plans and such. Ginny Oakwood did a presentation recently, PowerPoint on, that was what, 2 years ago? 2019 is when she did the presentation.
Mr. DeFranco, if you could,
some initial plans.
Robert, if you could wrap it up, please.
So, again, I know we're all speaking about it. I don't know with the project manager versus designs. I'm just saying that we urgently need this project to move forward in this county so that all the residents and all the animals are best protected. Did you have something you wanted to say, Jenny?
All right, Mr. DeFranco, thank you. I want to thank you for your service on the Animal Control Advisory Board. We do appreciate that. And next will be Ms. Ginny Oakwood. Ginny has been on the committee for a number of years also. She was the past chair. She did have to resign because of the requirements require you to live in Putnam County, and she has moved to Volusia County. So Ginny, state your name and address for the record, please. And we'll allow you at 3 minutes, okay?
Yes. Virginia Delgado Oakwood is my legal name. I also own Crescent City Kennel, and I'm the president of ARC Animal Rescue. I wanted also to mention that University of Miami Veterinary School did an assessment of what this county needed as a shelter. That was done years ago. Number 2, I have made several proposals on what needs to be outlined. When I had my kennel, when I purchased my kennel, it was an empty shell. I was the owner and conducted all the construction and internally and externally of the kennels that are needed, etc. So I'm very familiar what needs to happen. I will be glad to volunteer my services and assist any committed or sign agreement with any designer on the needs of this shelter. I have a passion for animals. We do not have a humane society in this county or low-cost neuter and spay. We need the shelter built, please. I understand there's a lot of hoops and statues, etc., but we really need to move forward. And again, I will volunteer my time with any designer, engineer, whatever. I have multiple assessments of what needs to be done, and we do not need a 4,000 square foot building. Right now, what they have is 0, and what we can get for them, even if it's 1,800 square feet inside with the connected runners connected to the building, that's all we need. It's nothing complicated. I am sorry to say I am just tired of waiting. It's been too many years, and this county needs this shelter. I see animals dead on the road. I'm constantly being called for strays. I have 23 kittens and I don't know how many dogs, and we need this shelter built. So please get together and make it happen. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jenny. Okay, any other individuals wishing to make public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor to move this forward with design build, correct?
Correct.
All in favor indicate by
I got a
saying.
question.
Okay, excuse me, Commissioner Rawls.
So is there going to be a limit on the budget, or are we just going to leave it?
We can't do it like that.
No, we can set it right now here.
No, she already said we could.
Well, she said we can't tell them. And actually, we can, but, so are we going to shoot for 750, or is this going to just be?
Right now, we have a budget of $750,000.
Let's see if we can bring it in.
I think
Okay, for discussion, $750,000 is what we have, and is that what we're going with?
Okay.
I don't think, all we need to do is state at this point that the current budget item is at $750. That's all we need to state. It's public record. Anybody can ask for it, and anybody can get it. So we haven't said anything other than our current budget has $750 in it. I don't know if it's gonna come in at that or not. It may be that we have to start over at square one and redesign to have an 1,800 square foot front room instead of a 4,000 square foot front room. I don't know, because if we come in here at $2 million, this commissioner is gonna ask us to start looking at it again, because we can't afford the other. And the one down in Volusia County, the one that's been mentioned here today, when we started this process, I think Matt was the one that reached out to them when he was deputy county administrator, and it cost $4.1 million to build it in 2002. So it's not within our budget. So we're trying to make this work. I get it. Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to vote if you are, sir.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we'll move down to item E. Ship subordination policy. Commissioners, this is an item that I am bringing before you. This was a request of a ship recipient that came to us to try to get a HELOC loan on her place. And the ship requirements, it does not allow that. So the board tasked me to get back and work with staff, work with legal, to try to come up with a solution to, and I wanted to bring this to y'all today for discussion. And I'll ask Rip maybe for a little bit of clarification, but this would allow somebody that has a ship loan to be able to, if they meet all the criteria, is to go to a lending institution and get a loan for home improvements, basically, and then the bank would move to number one secured creditor, the county would be number two, but it would still protect the county because of the criteria that they would have to meet, and it would allow them to do repairs to their home that are needed, rather than try to go back and try to get a second ship loan or something like that. So that's what I'm going to bring to y'all today.
Move approval.
Okay, Rich, do you have any comments at all?
You hear me?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I will.
No, I mean, right now, there's not even the
Yeah, for a
possibility to
second.
do this.
I am
So this
sorry.
gives the board the possibility to review under the criteria in paragraph 5.
I second
Okay,
it.
we got a proper motion to move this forward, and we got a proper second by Commissioner Harvey. Okay, under discussion, Commissioner Adamsack?
I guess, Rich, this would let anyone who got ship money to do the same thing.
If they meet all the
Yes,
criteria.
if they meet the criteria. It's not just because somebody wants to take money out. It's not because, I I mean, there's a list of things under 6 that tell you when you can't do it. But the idea is that if somebody is still looking to improve their position and they're not looking to take advantage of the SHIP program, the idea is to give them the ability to do that. And it would still come before the board.
I mean, there still is no way for us to guarantee that they improve their property, though. I mean, because you're allowing them to do it before
But the bank
the
will.
improvement occurs.
They're borrowing the money from the bank. The bank is gonna ensure they use it for
Yeah.
that purpose. I promise you that.
Yeah.
That's what banks do. They make sure you don't go on to Italy with the money.
Thank you.
And this would be, a case-by-case basis, and it would just be available for Guardian. This would not have to go into the LHAP or anything like that. This would be a standalone policy by the board. Okay, any other further questions on this? Okay, all in favor, in that case, saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Okay, moves forward. Okay, item F.
Move approval.
Okay, there's been a request for roughly $40,000 for Parks and Recs for upgrading, fixing some lights. We've got a motion by Commissioner Turner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a second under discussion. Commissioner Harvey?
I thought we already did this.
No, sir.
Didn't we
This
already
is
do
the
this?
first. No, sir. We, the board approved up to, I believe, $40,000, just round numbers. I think that's why you're probably seeing the similarity, to allow the Parks and Rec Department to put in a well at Project Play. But this is for the Francis Youth Sports Complex, the lighting.
Oh, we did that out of ARPA funds.
Francis is not in the qualified census tract, so no upgrades to
go.
Francis will be made
That's
through
right.
ARPA.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, public comment, anybody wishing to make public comment on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor, next saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Okay, Parks and Recreation, item G, Park and Recreation, Melrose Heritage Park, Adopt a Park.
Mr. Chairman, move approval.
Okay, got
Second.
a proper motion by Commissioner Harvey and a proper second by Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion? Okay, any public comment on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, that can say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. Okay. Let's take a 3-minute break. we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll reconvene the Board of County Commissioners workshop, and we'll move down to item H,
Mr.
surplus
Chairman.
property.
I move approval. Staff recommendation.
No.
What?
Okay, Julianne?
It says listed properties for purchase and listed properties for donation.
No, I understand. Let me take them one at a time, if you don't mind, sir, and then I'll let you approve each item, if you will. The county has 3 properties that have been acquired by escheatment, and staff sees no reason to retain them. We'd like to place them for sale via bid, but if desired to sell, the BOCC must establish a minimum bid for the properties. Now your turn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move these out to bid at whatever minimum. I have no minimum.
Your prior minimum was 20.
$20 then. Good. I like it.
I'll
Okay.
second it, but I want to talk about it.
Okay, we got a proper motion, and then we got a proper second. We'll go to commissioner comments and discussion on this. Commissioner Turner?
So, just to make sure that I'm understanding here, we're gonna sell these, but we're gonna sell them on a bid process, and we're gonna notify everybody around them, and we're gonna do that. We're not just gonna say, okay, Mr. John Smith, who lives next door that wanted this piece of property, you can now buy it for $20. We're not doing that. We're saying you have a minimum bid for $20, put it on auction, just like we've been doing the last 2 years.
That's correct. We not only notify adjacent owners, we have an ongoing list of any individual, citizen, or otherwise who has asked to be notified if these bids are released. We will notify both sets of those individuals.
Works for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we do publish it in the newspaper.
Good deal.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, indicating saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign.
All right, part 2 is one individual has expressed interest in purchasing a county-owned property. Staff sees no reason to retain it. If allowed, staff will follow the proper sale avenue for the property as identified by statute.
Which would be what?
We haven't, well, we don't go that far when we bring it to you guys. First, we determine intent, but it would go for bid unless it falls into a very narrow category, which would be a non-biddable lot of a value less than a certain amount, and it has no value to any other property owner other than the one requesting to buy it. So there's a very, very narrow process by which we could sell the property directly to the individual. Otherwise, it would be part of the bid.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Adamsack?
I think that answers my question.
Commissioner Harvey?
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this parcel is the parcel on Orange Springs Cutoff Road. That's the one that's landlocked and somebody wants to buy it. Is that what we're talking about?
I believe so, yes, sir.
But it's landlocked? Are they going to be coming back to us trying to get some type of easement or something? Or is it going to be as is?
So it's sold as is, whereas without representation or warranty. It would, if it is the parcel in the middle, what we would do is reach out to adjacent owners, if that makes sense, and they would have the ability to.
So we currently own this by escheatment now, and we're landlocked ourselves.
We currently own it. It is unclear how we acquired it. It could be escheatment, but I will not promise that to you.
Okay. So if somebody wants to buy a landlocked piece of property,
They do. They own an adjacent parcel.
are they an adjacent parcel? Thank you. Okay.
Okay,
There you go.
Yep.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we sell this parcel of property. How's that sound?
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, proper motion, proper second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Do you need a minimum bid
part-
on this?
No, sir.
If we're,
It would follow the $20 minimum established for the bid as a whole.
But if it's a landlocked piece of property that's only bought as a next door.
It
I
has to
don't
be
think-
the assessed value.
Huh?
The protocol is that it has to be, if it goes through a non-traditional bid, it would have to be the assessed value as assessed by the
Trying to
property
bring up,
appraiser.
You just said it could be $20. No, we don't want this one to be $20 because it's gonna be basically a one-person next door neighbor deal. It needs to be at the assessed value minimum, in my opinion.
I'm sorry, I didn't clarify. If it is not If it does not fall into the statutory ability for us to sell it to just the adjacent property owner, it would go to bid with a minimum of $20. If it does, then it has to be sold at the property appraiser's assessed value for the parcel. Item 3, or part 3 of this, is we have 4 individuals who have expressed interest in donating their property to the county. Public Works and Parks and Recreation have reviewed the offers and do not see any need or benefit from the county. However, we have to have board direction in order to deny those donation offers.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we do not accept the offer to donate.
Second.
Okay. Proper motion to not accept the properties, and a couple of seconds will take Commissioner Adamsack. And for discussion, Commissioner Adamsack? You just want to make the motion? Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll move down to item G from this morning, which is the Finnegan Road right-of-way. And Rich, have you done some extra research on the questioning and the wording that Commissioner Harvey had this morning?
Commissioner Harvey and I did speak about kind of the understanding of what the process was for the individual who's going to be receiving the benefit of the easement. That being said, I know Commissioner Harvey, you had an additional comment about the fees.
You know, after meeting with Rich and talking to our attorney, who is Rich, by the way, not financially, but name-wise, it does seem to be the best scenario where now the owner of the property, if we do it based on this language, would go after a variance for those structures to be inside our easement area. I did talk to the real estate agent, and although they don't like it, they're okay with it to move forward. They would like to make this an accelerated process if they can. I spoke to Gabriel. If they can get the paperwork in tomorrow, it possibly could be heard by the ZBOA in July.
The existing stuff that's already there has to go to ZBA?
It would have to go to-
Just in the future?
No, the existing stuff would have to get a variance today. But that would last for life. That,
Never permitted, is that the issue? Yes.
What if ZBOA says no?
then it goes to circuit court for appeal.
It'll be appealed, but
No, I'm not. No, here, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn on my light.
All right, Commissioner Adamsack?
If they in fact never permitted any of this stuff, I support that
I'm sorry,
100%.
they applied for, they were given a permit. The problem was there wasn't an appropriate boundary survey that said where the items were going to be located. So where they're located now are too close to the property lines. They can apply for a variance.
At some point, did they get a certificate of occupancy?
I'm sorry.
Did they get a certificate of occupancy at some point?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm probably gonna be with Mr. Turner then, but I'll wait till I hear what he has to say.
All right, I know the septic tank was an issue, but that was a new permitted, and the site drawing was incorrect. The other is the building, correct?
The building and
Which
the
is not-
mobile home is right up
Okay,
on,
the building and the mobile home.
do not meet setback requirements.
Okay, both of them. I thought it was just the building. Okay, but everything, those were permitted also, the building and the mobile home
Correct.
before?
No, the mobile home was permitted, and we're not sure about the roof, the carport.
Okay, all right, okay. Commissioner Turner?
The carport's one of them little hoop carports.
Right.
You can like take a few screws out and it'd fall down on the ground. So I mean, it's not like it's a solid built block carport or whatever. So my concern here is that we've been trying to find a way without somebody having to go spend 3 months at ZBOA, without doing all this stuff to try to get this project to move forward. I think that it's, unless Rich tells me it's illegal to do what we're wanting to do, this commissioner believes that the encroachment of the house and the encroachment of the septic tank drain field, which are the two things we're trying to rectify, where they don't have to move the trailer and they don't have to move the house, so we're gonna give them an easement. I think that easement should include those two items. If y'all don't wanna include the hoop carport or whatever, fine, tell him he's either got to go to ZBOA on that one or tear it down. But to make them go to ZBOA and put off what they're trying to do for another 3 months' time, to try to ask permission from ZBOA on the issue that started this whole process, that to me just doesn't make any sense. The reason we're putting this easement in place is to let him put his drain field in the little corner of the trailer that sticks on the right of way. Those are the reasons we're doing this. And so to tell him we're gonna let you have the easement, but now you got to go to ZBOA and ask to have the stuff that we're giving you the easement for to see if you can have it on the property. That doesn't make sense to me. I guess I'm missing something.
Well, because they're two separate issues.
Okay.
We're giving him the easement because the drain field is not on his property.
Right.
So that solves the problem of whether or not he would have to remove it or move it to another location within his property. The location of the actual mobile home, even giving him the easement, he's still too close to the property line, which is not our property line. So I can't give him something to his neighbor. He still needs a variance from the distance.
Oh,
to
so
that.
it's not our easement, that he's on the neighbor's easement?
No,
the
his
property?
distance
No.
is from the side property line that the corner of the mobile home comes right up against.
It wasn't my understanding, it was the same easement in the cul-de-sac is what I was told, that is where he's encroaching on, that the mobile home was actually encroaching on the same easement we're giving him, is what I was told. I might have misunderstood.
So the mobile home is at a diagonal on the lot. It doesn't, if the lot's as a square, it comes up. And as it's pushed all the way up, you're right, it's on the corner of the lot. It's too close to us and it's too close to the side. So,
But it's not, it's encroaching into it's encroaching into the setback on the neighbor, but it's actually encroaching into our right-of-way, which is part of the reason why we gave, or within 8 inches of it maybe, is why we did ours, and that's why I would like to see the man get an easement on our stuff.
that's what this will do.
Okay, so he'll be able to keep his septic tank there, or his drain field, and he'll be able to not have to go to ZBOA in order to keep the trailer and the drain field on the property? Or does he have to go to the ZBOA and ask for a special exception or either move it? If ZBOA turns him down, then we give an easement for no reason.
Well, the easement, again, allows him to keep the drain field where it is because it's not on his property. The location of where the mobile home is, we're trying to help guide him through this with the least fuss possible, but he's still gonna have to do that.
Why couldn't we give him easement? If we give him an easement, we can't waive the setback without going to ZBOA because we're giving him an easement.
No,
So,
not the setback to the side, on the side of
but
the
as long
property.
as that's been, not the one for the neighbor, you mean?
Correct,
But we're not on the neighbor's property, we're just violating the setback to the neighbor.
correct, which is why you need a variance.
Okay, so he needs a variance for his neighbor, not necessarily for where he's 8 inches from the land we're giving him easement on. He needs the variance from his neighbor.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, well, how long's that trailer been there, and how long because the zoning laws haven't been there as far as setbacks but a certain amount of time.
I have no idea how long it's been there.
See, that's my problem. If it predates zoning, if it predates our ordinance,
Don't
Then-
think it's that old.
well, it's somewhere back in there. I think it was like I remember, for instance, back in 1983, that predated certain setbacks in some zoning areas, and so anything predated 1983, there wasn't a setback there to violate. So it may be pre that time. I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to ask.
I understand, but I don't know when it was put there. I can look into that too.
I'd like to be able to see the guy, if he's got to have a setback because it didn't predate and they put it into the neighbor's setback, that's a different ballgame, because I don't want to violate the neighbor's rights.
Right.
But if it was predate that setback, when that trailer was set up, then there wasn't a setback at that time, and the easement should take care of him having the problem next to us with the drain field and where he's too close to our setback because we're giving him the easement. Is right? So it's just the easement to the neighbor, and it could be that if that mobile home was set up before that setback was in place, it should not have to meet the setback.
At that point, it could be considered legally non-conforming, but again, I don't know when it was good.
Commissioner Rawls?
I think this is one of those situations where we have to make a decision, and I think we're just gonna have to make it in favor of the current landowner. Is there any way to preclude them? Well, we've already said if they move the mobile home, all bets are off anyways. I agree with Commissioner Turner. I don't know why the side setback would all of a sudden be in play. Is this a result of land changing hands recently? Because I thought this was so they
They're
could sell.
trying to sell.
Right.
Right.
No, it's,
So
Yeah.
why is it an issue now? I guess is what I don't understand. Because it's changing hands?
right, because the title search affects the ownership of the property.
I don't know. I guess we don't have a choice.
Commissioner Adamczak?
I think we're back to where Mr. Harvey said this morning that maybe we should wait till next meeting. I think we need a little bit more information on the dates of when that was placed to see if it predates what Mr. Turner's referring to. And if it does, then I'm fine with moving forward without that comment in there. And if it doesn't, then I'm not.
Commissioner Harvey?
What if I'm kind of glad I read this, but then I feel bad that we go down this process. And, but what if we said under 2, on page 150, under 2, where it says grantee also acquires, what if we do a statement, Rich, that says based on the setbacks at the time of the placement of the mobile home? And if it doesn't, if the setbacks don't apply at that point, then we've given them the easement.
But that's implied with your code anyway.
I'm sorry?
You don't have to say something that's in your code anyway. That's the way the law is.
It is implied.
Yeah, but I don't like interpretation. So I think we could say based on the setbacks of the time of the placement of the mobile home. Whatever they were at that point, they were. But if they go to the ZBOA and they get turned down, then we've done nothing to help anybody at this point.
Made it worse.
We really made it worse. And I'd prefer just take that whole bottom sentence out. I know
Actually-
that would be not the advice of our attorney,
Hold
but
on,
in
hold
this
on.
case.
It was permitted in 2002,
So what were the setbacks?
the mobile home. The setbacks,
For what they are now in 2002, I'd be willing to bet. So I've got I'm
Commissioner, you done?
I think I am.
Mr. Turner?
I've got a picture here that shows basically the survey, the county surveyor's notes of where we gave them the easement. Looks to me like it's on page 153 of our packet, of this morning's packet. Is the trailer, which lot line is it impacting? Is it impacting the canal side or the other side? Because if it's too close to the canal, okay, who cares if he's within the setback of the canal? If I may, Mr. Chairman.
You have the floor.
Canal's all the way to the back of the property from what I remember. Not the side, it's all the way behind.
Well, the river's behind it and the canal's to the east of it. River's to the south of it.
Is that the actual survey, Rich, that you were showing me, or is that the site plan they turned in that was incorrect?
that looks like an old survey.
See, the problem, what started this problem years ago was they turned in a site plan that they basically drew without any scale or anything else back in 2002, and it was accepted, and then they just went out there and put it where they wanted to, and because there were no landmarks, it's not up to the building department to come in and say, okay, well, you're too close to the line or whatever. They just have to rely on some integrity by somebody, and evidently they may not have had any, so, or either it was an honest mistake, which could have been. So I'd kind of like to see us try to figure out a way that this didn't have to go on another 3 months.
I can talk to planning and zoning about whether or not, I don't think it would take 3 months, but whether or not there really is the need for the variance. Either way, they need the easement. So either way, his ability to sell property is being hung up by the fact that he doesn't have permission to have the drain field where it is. So we can still handle the other part, but it's not gonna change the fact that he needs the easement.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
Why can't we just drop that last sentence? I know that's not your preferred method, but if we drop that last sentence, it's over. We're not having this conversation anymore.
Hold on.
Part about he'd have to vacate if anything required approval or encroachment. That's the whole idea for doing the easement, where he doesn't have to do all that and
The
he can
whole
sell the
reason is
place.
because in the future, the county may have a need to use that property, and if the mobile home goes away, you don't want them to build something new in that area. That's the purpose of that last sentence.
Can't we put it in there that any additional things other than what's
It
currently
is, that's
there?
number 3.
That's number 3.
Yeah, I thought that was in there.
But sometimes when you hit the substantial damage rule, if you've got a hurricane and half of it's gone, you're required to follow current building code at that time. You don't want them to just rebuild it where it is. You want them to move back a little bit.
So in your opinion, what it says here, if he had damage, then he'd have to go to ZBOA and not be able to replace, or he's got to go to ZBOA before they can go and start living there?
Well, he's already living there. So when you look at that last sentence on the
Are they
first
living
paragraph
there?
of 2, yeah,
don't
I mean,
think-
they're
are they
living there,
living
they're
there?
selling it. When you look at that, it says grantee also agrees to acquire any required variances or permits for existing structures which do not satisfy the required setback distances. So if we determine that they meet those distances, then there's nothing to do. But as a precaution, we just want to let them know you may still have to do other things
For anything new or what they have now?
for what they have now.
But the whole reason we're doing this, because we know they don't meet them, so they're gonna have to immediately go back.
We're doing it for multiple reasons, not just one thing.
I thought we did it because they were already on it with their drain field, and we knew the trailer was too close. I thought that's the reason we were doing this, try to keep them having to tear everything down and make it a completely unusable piece of property. What I thought we were trying to accomplish. Maybe I'm just the only one.
No, you're
No,
not.
that's what I thought.
No, that's exactly what it is.
Mr. Chairman, may I have the floor?
Well, Commissioner Adams acts next.
I'm of the opinion, given that it was placed in 2002, that we move forward the way it's written. That's my opinion. That's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
I think honestly, I'd rather get rid of that one sentence, and if we can't do that, if we're not going to be in agreement with that, then I think what we need to do, well, I know what we need to do is go back to planning department and see, and maybe if it's a setback off the canal, that's ridiculous. We're not going to go there. And if it's a setback off of lot 4B, the neighbor's property up there, then we know that going into it. Or if we need to give more setback off of our cul-de-sac to accomplish that, and lot B is not affected, but I think we still have some discussion we need to do. So I'd like to table this to the next Board of County Commission meeting to get those questions answered.
Okay, Commissioner Turner?
I'm gonna second that, but if I do, I can't comment because it'll just move it forward. So if you bear with me, Commissioner,
Sure.
just a second. I believe that that our planning and development department has the ability to administratively move some setbacks, sometimes to some degree. So if they're 2 foot within the setback, and that's the only thing that's making this not work, that they have to go spend $750, go through 3 months of ZBOA and staff time and everything else for something that they're gonna get anyhow, or that staff could have just administratively done, then I think we need to look at that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll second Commissioner Harvey's motion.
Okay, we got a proper second, proper motion to table this, correct? And until the next meeting upon further research, we got a proper second by Commissioner Turner. Commissioner Rawls?
Does anybody know if it's possible for them to buy a strip of land from the neighbor? Make this go away? Anybody?
Anything's possible.
I mean, that might be the easiest way to deal with it.
Anything's possible.
The only issue with that is we don't know if that would put anybody else in the same issue that we're in. So I'd like I really do appreciate the comments of Commissioner Turner. So let's look at that. I'll meet with Commissioner Harvey tomorrow or whenever this week you want to meet, sir, and we'll get with planning and zoning. And whatever administrative rights that we have to do these things, we'll certainly take a look at it. Hearing all the comments here today, it gives us a much clearer direction and path for which we want to obtain. So let's see what we can do to fix this.
Okay, all right, any other further discussion? Okay, we need to go ahead and vote on this. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. All right, that's all of the BOCC workshop. We'll move down the commissioner requests, and before I start with Commissioner Turner, Commissioner Rawls on item B has pulled that,
I still want to talk about it a little bit, but.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, Commissioner Turner,
Okay, I had a meeting, I attended a meeting with, the man that came before the commission at I believe was last meeting, the meeting before Jay Tilton and I went and met with him, along with, Mr. Suggs was in and out. He had several double booked and triple booked, but he came in multiple times. And I expressed at the last meeting that the biggest thing that we need to make sure of is that this process didn't harm the citizens of Putnam County or our land set being being our landfill, our asset being the landfill. The main thing is that we couldn't interrupt the current revenue stream. Well, this gasification process, they've agreed to sign, to come up with a written agreement that said that if this comes to fruition, that all the trash will come through the landfill, that they won't bring trash in from somebody else at a lower price and go around us and interrupt our revenue stream, and that they're responsible to restore it if it doesn't work. If it's sold to a new owner, that the new owner would have to comply with this agreement. And basically we could, if it worked out, we could send our curbside and our recycling to this facility, because it is a recycling facility. And it would save the county $1 million a year alone in recycling, to be able to just throw everything in curbside and send it over there. And we'd have to come up with additional trash, which we agree to provide. And that they won't charge us to burn that trash in their thing at any point, because it's gonna be making the county money. And so what we've got to do for that, if they agree and there's an agreement signed, the county needs to agree to commit that they will put up 15 acres of land. And if it works out well, that they will agree later on to put up another 15 acres of land. Well, the landfill has 30 acres of land across the road from where the current landfill is towards the highway. It'll never be used for anything that I ever know of, because it's just a piece of property that sticks out there to the side. It would be perfect for this to do it. If we get this thing built, or they build this thing, and they claim they already have the investors and everything, and that once we have this agreement, they're gonna move forward. They've got a list of investors, of who's who Fortune 200 investors, and so that need these that need these recycling credits, to make their deal work. If we can get it to work 1 year, we'll pay for that property near about tenfold, because just in the savings of what we pay for recycling, not including, we're not gonna wear out equipment for burying the trash, we're not gonna fill up our sale, we're not, I mean, I can go on and on and on with the savings from not having to bury this trash, if we can send it over to them and they're gonna recycle it for free for us, which is basically what they're coming up with. So what today is, what I'd like to do is I would like to request the commission allow me, the county attorney, the county administrator, and the head of sanitation to try to come up with an agreement that they would agree to, that we can bring back to this board, for this board to approve or critique and move forward with this agreement. I think now it's in the best interest of the county if this agreement is signed. Got to be the agreement where they can't interrupt our revenue stream and start taking trash for $10 when we're charging 28. Nobody's bringing it to us anymore. So anyhow, that's what I would like to request today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you. Mr. Turner, what kind of product are they going to be making? And
Gas.
gas?
Yes, it goes, they burn it out of there, and I thought it was methane. Jed told me today it was methanol.
Methylene.
Methanol. And they take that methanol and they sell it. They have somebody right now that's giving them a letter of commitment. They'll buy every ounce of this gas that they produce at the market rate. And so they turn that into different things, mainly plastics, but at different things. And so, you know, of course, you don't know how much they're gonna produce or whatever, but with what they think they can produce at the 250 tons and the what have you, they think it's gonna be, at today's product levels, a $40 million a year thing. So that's why they don't care about us much for our revenue stream and our stuff. They're more concerned that we give them the trash and that we commit that we'll take our trash there to fuel this system to make it all work. And it's gonna be built somewhere around $100 million or so. It's gonna be built by people who need recycling credits. People that can take these credits and instead of using them and instead of using recycled materials for their packaging to a certain degree, which they pledge to do, they can take this recycling and count it towards their pledge to make this happen. And so that's where they're making the money, and that's why they're willing to put the money in, because $20 million to a Fortune 200 company may not be as much if they actually get something out of it and have a chance of getting their money back from the sales of the product down there, and we make money because we don't have to bury the trash, we don't have to recycle anymore, we don't have to do any of that.
So are we talking just our recycling? Are we talking all trash? Are they gonna do
Curbside?
they're gonna do a dirty MRF and pick through it? Is what they're gonna do?
No, we're gonna carry all our curbside to them, and the recycling would be just added to the curbside pickup.
So they'll pick through
We
it?
only do about 130 in curbside pickup, 132, 3, whatever.
Okay,
They need 250 tons to make this work on the smaller machine.
okay. Will they be mining our current landfill?
Would they be what?
Mining it?
No, we're gonna take stuff straight to them.
Okay. But they probably might in the future if it's possible. Yeah.
If they needed more garbage than we could send them, or more trash than we could send them, that's a possibility.
Now
We're gonna start mining and sell 4B ourselves pretty
Right.
quick. We've
So-
already bought a Trumbull and all that stuff.
So the 15 acres of land with a promise to have an additional 15, that 30 acres would never be a landfill.
No, sir.
So. I
Our
mean, I'm
master
just-
plan at this time has us digging up all 10 cells coming back to the south. And then right now, if you look at the kind of the layout of the property that we have, it would be, in my opinion, best to go straight north
Yeah,
between
I
the
agree.
power line and Cal Bay Road. This is on the east side of Cal Bay Road.
I get it.
Yes, sir.
I know what's gonna happen. The consumers are out there gonna say, well, you're selling 30 acres of valuable landfill property, but we don't plan on using
No,
that
sir.
for airspace, so that's
And then we
off
got,
the table.
and we got, if you go further north, get on the other side of Environmental Boulevard, we've got 600 more acres straight north and into the northeast.
Get it.
Because right now the plan is if you go to the northwest, that's where we want our bar area and things like that to get
Okay,
our dirt.
so 30-acre commitment would be economic development to produce $100 million worth of, some company would own this property. And 15, but then
Gonna
additional.
commit, but then if it's successful,
Yes, sir.
But that would be in private land ownership at that point, and we would receive taxes off that property of a $100 million investment.
but we also get $1 million a year in savings, and
Yeah.
not including all the other
Yeah,
stuff,
I
just
get-
on
I get
recycle.
that.
And if they build the second unit, they're talking about that being a 600-ton unit
Yeah.
instead of a 250-ton unit. And it could be that all we're doing is taking, instead of putting 600 tons and 850 tons in the landfill, we're gonna put 1 ton of aftermath. That's about the breakdown.
So, my
And they
question-
did say that they would have the ability to use our mined material
Yeah.
if we
They're
wanted to
gonna have
down the
to.
road.
I learned that at the Hinckley Center, it's always.
So
They're gonna do that one day.
essentially what they need right now is they just need a partner that has a facility that will give them a piece of property, because
Okay.
they have to sell this to the stakeholders that are wanting to invest in this,
Yeah.
and they need a piece of property.
I
So,
wanna
and
make
somebody that has the garbage.
I want to make sure that 30 acres is not going to be landfill, and then the price of that, what's the price? I don't have a problem helping the company get started. $100 million, saves on our landfill, gives our consumers back money. It's a win-win situation.
Yes, sir.
And I've always said, I said the day I was at University of Florida, and I've said it here, I've said it to you. One day, these companies are going to quit bagging this garbage up and putting it under wraps, and they're going to say, we got a better product. But they're making money right now, so they don't want to bring that product out, and I get that. But I held that torch, and I know what they're going to do. So
So
this is a good step in the right
So
direction.
just so you know, this is a little different
Yeah.
than the one that you're
I-
doing.
I
In
know.
fact, the guy that we're dealing with, those guys don't like this guy.
Well, I'm not talking about the guy, I'm talking about.
I
they
mean,
like
I'm saying the
university-
industry. This is the packaging industry that's
I-
putting this on, not the solid waste
Right,
industry.
but I held the torch at the University of Florida. I
Yes, sir.
like those people.
Sure.
Go Gators, you know what I mean? So,
You know.
you know. But I did hold that torch. Dr. Townsend handed
sir.
it to me, so.
Okay.
so. And it does have great possibilities in the future
Yes, sir.
of saving landfills and saving our environment. It really does.
Look, landfills are a tough sell anywhere in the world now these days, but they're a necessary evil.
Right.
So when somebody comes along with an effective way to handle it another way and it makes financial sense, it's going to work.
I agree. Thank you. That's all the questions I have, Mr.
This gas, so they bottle it up and send it off in
It's a
tankers?
liquid.
Yes, sir.
It's a liquid?
Yes,
so-
sir.
But it's not, they won't do underground piping and pipe it
No,
at
sir.
different places?
No, sir.
Okay, and we would be giving them, we'd be selling them the property, or our part of it would
That's
be
ethanol.
donating 15 acres?
This is methanol.
we need to commit that if this goes through and they have the funding in place
Right.
to start this project, that we will give them
Okay.
15 acres of land. But I'm telling you, we ain't giving them squat, because the first year they set this thing up to the agreement terms, the county saves millions.
Understand that? I
Millions
heard that.
of
I heard
dollars,
that part.
and all we've got involved is giving them 15 acres.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
Part of the conversation the day that we met with the guys from Command was they can utilize the food, because these guys don't want food waste.
Correct.
As part of the methanol.
Correct.
So, has there been any conversation or any thought given to composting, taking the food waste and actually using that in the composting process?
So I would tell you that part of what they're proposing is some sort of sorting system
Yeah.
at this facility.
Yep.
We haven't really went there, other than I did tell them that we have met with some composting guys that would like the food waste, and then to be able to mix it with a mulch material and make a compost. But the main thing right now we've just discussed is, are we a viable partner with the amount of garbage we take in and the ability to have a piece of property that we could
The
get
reason I
to?
bring this up is we have 30 acres. The other guy said they needed 15 acres. And if you had the 15 next to 15, you're further reducing the amount of waste going in. The cell longevity is much longer.
The problem with the compost guys is we don't have the amount of material that they want to come set up shop.
We haven't got this
No.
either. Some of the people, we were told that some of the people in this process that are writing checks want this process to be in Texas.
Right.
So we're competing for this to some degree. And so if this goes to Texas, we're done with it, but this is the first step. And I figure if all we got to do is give them 15 acres and we don't have to give it unless the money's raised and unless it's coming.
Yeah.
We haven't given anything away unless we're gonna reap the benefit.
Well, the reason I bring this up is just so we know that there is this possibility of having the perfect union where you've got the 15 acres going for the methanol, and then when we were there, correct me if I'm wrong, the road that goes, you drive in due west, and then we were looking on the left side of that road.
Yes, sir. We were looking on, so we have 135 acres to the south of us.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the composting facility being right there.
Okay.
It would just work right there, and there is property right there directly south of Waste Pro, the Waste Pro building that would probably work for that type of facility.
So would the MRF happen at their facility, or would we have to give them land inside of?
No, the MRF would all be at their facility.
Okay, and then whatever they don't discard, and
Yeah.
you were talking about wanting glass, was that discussed at all? We get the glass out of
They
it?
can actually, no, they don't, they can actually burn it all in there for
Want
the
the
most
glass.
part. But they don't, I mean, they'll even burn from the carbon, part, they would even burn like wood debris and stuff like that, tires. All that can go in there. Of course, the more glass they can burn it, the more glass you have. So there's two byproducts that come out of this. It looks like big old, y'all remember the old like 80s Superman movies with those crystals and stuff like that? That's what it looks like that comes out the bottom. And then a precious metal wad of stuff that they actually can do that with. Those are the two byproducts, but it really isn't a whole lot. I think when we met with him, he said that 250 tons, they'll get like 400 pounds or something like that total at the end of the day. From that, that's all the residue that's left. So, yeah.
And then the rest of the process, they take the gases that are given off by the burn, they recapture that, and that's what they turn into methanol.
That's right.
So we don't have to worry about it going out in the environment.
So they're doing this process in Oregon right now, but it's not this one. They're capturing hydrogen. That's what they're capturing off of the one from the landfill in Oregon. So this is now to capture the methanol, and they have Eastman Chemical that will buy every piece of it that they can produce.
He also, he clicked off Frito-Lay was one of the big ones that were putting money up.
Any of the big
General
packaging
Mills.
companies, and it's strictly, they made promises. When I was up in South Carolina, I don't want to, we powered 60% of the BMW plant there in Spartanburg from my landfill gas. Was it cheaper? No.
From methane?
Yes, sir. I shipped it 13 miles in a pipeline through a company called Amoresco. And it wasn't cheaper, but it was a promise that they had made that they're going to be so many percent recycling or sustainability that, I mean, this is the same shindig.
Okay, Commissioner Adamczak?
So I just want to visualize this. So a garbage truck comes into their facility.
Yes, sir. Well,
filled with whatever's in it.
yes, sir.
We're no longer having a recycling bin out. Everyone puts everything into one big can.
Yes, sir.
Gets dumped in the truck. They sort it there. They send the stuff they can't process back across the street to the dump.
They said there wasn't, no, the only thing they're going to sort out is if there's something that's more valuable as a recycling commodity than actually running it through their piece of
What about
equipment.
the food scraps and stuff that are in my garbage?
Well, we're going to have to limit that. I mean, they can handle a certain amount of it. They don't want it to be all food scraps.
Well, how
Like
do
if
you
we were to
limit
have,
that if it's coming off a truck?
I mean, you're just going to have to assume that there's a certain amount of it, a percentage of it that's going to be, food scraps.
So there's
in there.
250 tons includes food scraps?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So that just kind of burns off the top.
Now, if we came to them and said that we wanted to put together a recycling program or work with them to see if we could pull that out,
So,
that's a conversation for a later day, but,
so into our dump,
right.
all that comes is the residual.
And I don't know that we get that. They actually acted like they might have I know the precious metals, they're like, we got a place for that. The glass crystal looking things,
Right.
I don't know.
So you're saying like when someone throws out a TV and it's in there, then that's going to get crushed, and when they melt it down, that gold and silver.
A little bit of stuff falls out, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I gotcha.
Yes, sir.
So coming into our dump will only be people dropping stuff off from their house?
Well, and then some of our out-of-county garbage that we still take, because we're averaging about 630 a day right now on a 6-day week.
Okay.
So, they're going to take 250 on a 7-day week, because it's going to be a 7-day operation.
Right.
So, we're still going to have not quite half they're gonna get,
We wouldn't want to divert that there as well?
because they don't have the capacity to do it.
Okay.
Right now. So, and everything, what we're proposing is, or the conversation that we had, is everything's gonna come across our scales. It's not gonna go directly to them. And everything's gonna be billed through us. That way we continue to get our revenue, and we make sure that that part stays with us. We're just supplying them a piece of property and a fuel source with the garbage.
So if we're competing with Texas, so to speak, do we want to give these guys some leeway to negotiate tax breaks or something else like that, since we're seeing the...
I don't think it's that type of,
Offer anything.
Yeah.
We want the best deal we can get.
yeah.
But you're competing against someone else, and it's a known fact that Texas offers that. They
I don't-
advertise it
I don't know, that's-
on TV here in Florida,
Yeah.
trying to get companies to go there. In that case,
If it was to come down to that, I believe they'd come to us and say, look, we have the same deal here and the same deal there. They're offering us tax incentives with you. But I don't think we need to offer them at this point. I think that we can, if we promise them the fuel stream, and we promise them certain things of 15 acres, and we make these promises, I believe we're gonna be in the running. I just believe we are. The fellows want it here because they're from here. They don't wanna travel to Texas for 2 years.
Research has all been done here. It's one of the money guys is the ones that wants it in Texas.
so if we don't have enough, then we could theoretically pull stuff off our dump and bring it over there,
Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
and that's not a
Have
problem.
to.
Say yes, sir. So say like Commissioner Turner was saying, so we do about 130 tons a day of our curbside, okay? Then you got another, that's Putnam County curbside. Then you probably got another 20, 25 of City of Palaca curbside. All right, then after that, we go looking at our commercial front load stuff, the ones that go to the different businesses and shake it over the top. You know, each one of those is 13 tons, you know. So pull in a couple of those and a couple of semis from Bunnell, there's their 250 tons.
And then if we don't have enough, we just pull right out of the
Pull
dump.
another one.
Okay.
So we just have to monitor it and make sure that our scale.
I have no problem with it. I love that. Well, you're not even really mining it. You're just scooping it and bringing it.
Yeah, we're just taking it over to them. Now, if we were able to mine, you know, one of the things about the mining that I'm learning is that, you know, when I'm looking at the historical data once we get started, like 65% of that's dirt. Right. So, you know, that would just save that little bit of section that we're going to have to put in the new cell when we get going.
Okay, so Commissioner Turner, what you're looking for, state it again.
I look for consensus from the board to allow me, Rich, Administrator, and Mr. Tilton to meet with this group and try to come up with an agreement that they will agree to bring back to the board for the board to agree also, and then we'll commit to the 15 acres and move forward.
Okay, everybody good with it? Wave of support, okay? All right, anything else on that? All right, thank you. We do, Sheriff's Office is scheduled to do some training in here, and, oh, Supervisor, okay. And, they're gonna do some training in here at 5:30, so we got 15 more minutes. Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
So one of the things that we've been working on in the Public Safety Coordinating Council / Let's Fix Putnam County's Substance Abuse and Mental Health Disorder meetings is trying to come up with a one-stop shop. One of the problems that's been isolated is that there's a lot of available resources, but nobody talks to each other. They don't work together in the same building. There's a group from Flagler Hospital called Care Connect that has a successful program over there. They have one office location, and when you go in there, if a person was in any kind of need, whether it's for their children, for the adults, if they needed housing, if they needed food, they go to one location, and then they're able to put those folks in touch with the right people. In the case over there, they actually have small 10-by-10 office areas. So all these different NGOs have an area to meet them. And one of the requests is made was whether or not the commission would be willing to give up space here for somebody to come in and set up a one-stop shop. I did meet the other day with the United Way of Northeast Florida and also with Habitat for Humanity. And I asked the lady from Habitat, she said, well, we bought the building across the street. She's a one-person operator. She said, if there was a place for us, maybe we would have just gone in there. I said, well, then you can sell your building. There's a fundraiser, it goes back on the tax rolls, and they can operate there. So when somebody goes in there and has a housing need, they're put in touch with the right people. But Jennifer Willis wants to come and do a presentation. She works with Care Connect over in, I say it's Care Connect Flagler Hospital, but they're in St. Augustine. So just want to bring that to your attention.
Okay. All right, so you get that maybe on an agenda item, so we could have some backup information, so put it on a future agenda. Okay, Commissioner Harvey, do you have a question?
I don't.
Okay, we'll move down to Commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Adamsack.
I have none.
Commissioner Turner,
I have nothing to add.
Commissioner Rawls.
I am cold.
That's why I wore my jacket in here. Commissioner Harvey.
I'm good, sir, thank you.
Okay, and I have really no comments. County Attorney.
I just want to apologize for not being able to be here earlier today. I had a court hearing that ran a little bit longer than I thought it did, but also, one, happy Flag Day. Last thing is also for the next meeting, I'm going to be out of the country, but if you have any questions or things that come up on the agenda that I'll be put out in advance, I'll be able to talk to you by that. I can either come down and meet, or we can talk by phone, and I'll do my best to follow the same through the live stream video. So other than that, thank you.
Okay, County Administrator.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll move down to public comment on miscellaneous items. Any individual wishing to make public comment on miscellaneous items? Okay, seeing none. Any further business come before this board? We stand adjourned.